Snow hammered the windows of Mercy Ridge Trauma Center the night they dragged the quiet nurse across the ER floor. No one knew her real name. No one knew why her hands never shook when people were dying. And no one understood why a Black Hawk helicopter was descending onto the hospital roof just seconds after security threw her out. Most people think the deadliest mistakes in medicine come from lack of skill. They don't. They come from pride. From the moment powerful people stop listening. Tonight, one wounded federal operative is fighting for his life inside a crowded Denver emergency room. And the only woman who can save him is the same nurse they just humiliated in front of everyone. But this story isn't just about medicine. It's about buried trauma, military secrets, and the terrifying cost of ignoring the right voice. Watch until the end and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. The helicopter blades kept pounding the roof, but inside Mercy Ridge Trauma Center, the silence after Maya Bennett's name was spoken felt louder than the aircraft above them. Major Bennett. The words moved through the emergency room like a shockwave. A nurse near the medication cart stopped with her hand frozen around a vial. A resident who had spent the last 6 months barely looking Maya in the eye stared as if the floor had opened beneath him. Security Supervisor Caleb Royce still had one hand half raised, the same hand he had used to drag her away from the trauma bay. His face had gone gray. Dr. Grant Hollis did not move at all. He stood in the center of Trauma Bay 3 with blood on his gloves. His chin lifted, his jaw locked, still trying to wear authority like armor. But his eyes betrayed him. They kept cutting from Colonel Ethan Shaw to Maya, then to the dying man on the table, then back to Maya again. Maya wiped one palm against her scrub pants. Not because she was nervous, because there was soup on her skin from when she hit the floor. That small, humiliating detail seemed to bother her more than the soldiers rushing through the doors. Colonel Shaw stepped fully into the trauma bay. He was tall, lean, and built like a man who had slept in combat boots for most of his adult life. His winter coat was open over a dark uniform. Snow melted on his shoulders. 2 tactical medics moved behind him carrying hard cases marked with red medical crosses and black federal seals. The hospital administrator, Linda Carver, pushed through the crowd with a phone pressed to her ear. "Who authorized this?" she demanded. "This is a private medical facility." Shaw did not look at her. Not tonight. Linda's voice sharpened. "You cannot just walk armed personnel into my emergency department." Now Shaw turned his head. His eyes were calm, which made them worse. "Ma'am, I can walk them anywhere a federal asset is actively dying." The words landed hard. Federal asset. Derek Vance, the patient on the table, jerked under the restraints. His skin had turned the color of wet ash. A line of dark blood crept from the corner of his mouth. The monitor above him pulsed with ugly numbers that kept falling. Maya saw all of it before anyone spoke. She saw the shallow rise of his left chest, the swelling beneath his ribs, the way the wound edges had darkened, not red, not purple, but gray, as if something inside him was burning without flame. The sight pulled her backward in time so fast she almost lost her breath. Canvas walls snapping in desert wind, a field light swinging over an open abdomen, a young soldier whispering for his mother in a voice too small for his body. Maya forced herself back into the room. She had spent 9 months teaching her face to reveal nothing. 9 months in Denver, 9 months on night shift. 9 months as the quiet nurse who took extra charts, covered breaks, cleaned blood from bed rails, and never corrected doctors unless someone was about to die. Mercy Ridge Trauma Center was a beautiful place to bleed if you had the right insurance. Glass walls, polished floors, private donors whose names hung above waiting rooms, a rooftop helipad, a trauma unit that boasted survival rates on billboards across the city. But beneath the shine, Mercy Ridge had rules no one put in writing. Doctors led. Administrators smiled. Nurses endured. And Maya Bennett, employee number 71482, had become very good at enduring. She had learned to answer when spoken to and stay silent when ignored. She had learned which surgeons wanted instruments placed in their left hand and which ones snapped when the room grew too quiet. She had learned the exact tone Dr. Hollis used when he wanted someone punished without making it sound like punishment. She had also learned that nobody asked about the scars. There was one along the inside of her forearm, thin and pale from shrapnel that had missed her radial artery by less than an inch. Another sat beneath her collarbone, hidden by her scrub top, where a piece of windshield glass had cut deep during a convoy rollover outside Kandahar. The worst scars were not visible. They lived in the body like weather. A door slamming too hard. The smell of diesel. A patient begging not to sleep. Those things could drag a person across years. At Mercy Ridge, people saw only what they expected. Maya was 37. Quiet, efficient, and unfriendly in the way tired people are often mistaken for unfriendly. She wore her dark hair in a low knot. She kept a small notebook in her pocket. She did not join gossip circles at the nurses' station. She ate alone in the staff lounge when she ate at all. The younger nurses called her dependable. The residents called her intense. Dr. Hollis called her Bennett when he needed something, and Nurse when he wanted to remind her where she stood. Only Tessa Monroe had ever tried to look closer. Tessa was 26, quick-moving, warm-faced, and still new enough to believe hospitals ran on compassion instead of exhaustion. On her second week at Mercy Ridge, she watched Maya catch a medication error without embarrassing the resident who made it. A dose of blood thinner had been entered wrong. 1 decimal point. One tiny mark on a screen that could have killed an old man by morning. Maya had simply placed the chart back in front of the resident and tapped the number once. No speech, no blame. The resident corrected it without looking up. Later, Tessa found Maya restocking trauma drawers. "How did you see that from across the desk?" Maya did not pause. You learn to notice small things before they become loud things. Tessa had smiled, thinking it was wisdom. She did not know it was survival. On slow nights, which were never truly slow, Tessa watched Maya move through the department like she was listening to a song no one else could hear. Maya knew when a drunk patient would swing before his shoulder tightened. She knew when a child with a stomachache needed surgery before the scan came back. She once walked past a man sleeping under a heated blanket, stopped, turned around, and called for respiratory before his oxygen alarm ever sounded. When Tessa asked how Maya only said his breathing changed. But the monitor was fine. People crash before machines admit it. That was Maya Bennett. A woman who spoke in fragments. A woman who seemed carved out of restraint. No one knew that before she came to Mercy Ridge she had held the rank of Major in the United States Army. No one knew she had been attached to Raptor Surgical Command, a classified rapid response medical unit built for the ugliest edges of modern war. No one knew she had operated inside armored carriers' school basements, embassy safe rooms and tents stitched together under mortar fire. Raptor was not sent where medicine was clean. It was sent where time had collapsed, where the patient was too important to die and too damaged to move, where the only operating room was a folding table, and the only choice was between impossible and worse. Maya had once opened a man's chest while tracer fire crossed over the roof of a burned clinic. She had packed a liver wound with strips torn from a sterile drape because the supply truck was gone and the helicopter could not land. She had kept an intelligence officer alive for 9 minutes with her own hand inside his abdomen, pinching an artery until evacuation arrived. She had been decorated twice. She had been thanked by generals. She had been called indispensable, which was just another way of saying they would keep sending her back. Then came the mission outside Mosul. No one at Mercy Ridge knew about that night. Maya rarely allowed herself to remember it in full. Memory was safer in pieces. A convoy moving without headlights. A child's bicycle lying in the road. The first blast that made no sound at all, only pressure. Then the screaming started. The wounded came in with injuries that did not behave like injuries. Tiny metal fragments buried deep. Tissue swelling too fast. Blood refusing to clot. Nerves firing in violent storms. Men who should have survived were gone in minutes. Men who were awake and speaking suddenly seized, bled, and went still. Maya had worked until her gloves tore. She saved 3. She lost 5. One of the dead had been 19 years old. He had a photo of his little sister taped inside his helmet. Maya remembered that because after he died, the photo had fallen into the blood under the table, and she had picked it up with fingers that would not stop shaking. After the investigation, men in suits told her the weapon was experimental. They told her she had done everything possible. They told her the details were classified. They told her to rest. Then they asked when she could return to duty. Maya resigned 6 weeks later, or tried to. The Army did not like releasing people who knew how to keep secrets breathing. It took favors, threats, medical evaluations, and one private conversation with Colonel Ethan Shaw that ended with him signing a transfer document he did not want to sign. He had found her standing outside a military hospital in Maryland at 4 in the morning, still wearing scrubs from a surgery that lasted 14 hours. "You walk away from this," he told her. "They'll still call." Maya looked at the sunrise bleeding orange over the parking lot. "Then don't give them my number." Shaw had studied her face. "You know I can't promise that." She nodded once. "I know." After that, Maya disappeared into civilian medicine. Not completely. No one with her history ever disappeared completely. But enough. She moved west, took a nursing position instead of a surgeon's appointment, removed her old credentials from every conversation, chose nights because fewer people asked personal questions after midnight. She told herself it was not hiding, it was healing. The distinction mattered until nights like this. In Trauma Bay 3, Derek Vance's pressure dropped again. 60/40. Tessa called out voice tight. Dr. Hollis snapped back into motion. "Increase fluids. Prepare for thoracotomy." Maya's head turned. No, one word. Flat, quiet, absolute. Hollis looked at her as if she had slapped him. "You do not get to say no in my trauma bay." Maya stepped closer to the patient. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. If you open his chest from the left, you release the tamponade around the fragment. He'll exsanguinate before you find the source. Hollis laughed once humorless and sharp. "Tamponade from a rib wound, you're guessing." "No. Then what are you doing?" Maya looked at Derek Vance's wound again. The gray edge, the slight bubbling under the skin, the chemical smell hiding beneath blood and antiseptic. Remembering. Something in her tone made Tessa glance at her. Colonel Shaw heard it too. He moved beside Maya, lowering his voice. "Is it the same?" Maya did not answer immediately. A person could spend years building a wall inside herself. Brick by brick. Shift by shift. Breath by breath. Then one wound could split it open. She leaned over Vance and touched the skin beside the injury with 2 gloved fingers. His body reacted before the monitor did. A tremor moved through his abdomen. Maya pulled her hand back. "It's close." Shaw's jaw tightened. Dr. Hollis looked from one to the other, anger rising to cover confusion. "Someone explain what that means." Maya finally looked at him. "It means your patient was not injured in a crash." Hollis frowned. "The ambulance report said convoy impact. The ambulance report is wrong." Linda Carver stepped in, her voice strained. "This man came through our doors as a civilian trauma patient. We need documentation before changing care protocols." Maya's eyes stayed on Vance. "He does not have time for your paperwork." That was the moment Hollis's pride fully ignited. For years, he had been the man people stepped aside for. Grant Hollis was handsome in the polished way of men who never doubted their reflection. He had trained at elite hospitals, given lectures on trauma leadership, and appeared in local news segments whenever Mercy Ridge needed a calm face after disaster. He believed in order. He believed in chains of command. Most of all, he believed his place at the top of that chain was proof he belonged there. Maya's existence threatened something deeper than his authority. She had seen what he had missed, in front of everyone. He moved close enough that only she and the nearest staff could hear. "You may have fooled them with whatever military theater this is, but in this hospital you are still under my license." Maya met his eyes. No, your patient is under my hands. For a second, nobody breathed. Then Vance convulsed. His back arched off the table. Blood sprayed from the wound in a thin, dark line. Tessa grabbed the side rail. A monitor screamed. One of the residents cursed under his breath. Pressure's crashing, Tessa said. 40 systolic. Hollis reached for a scalpel. Maya caught his wrist. It happened so fast the room reacted late. Hollis stared at her hand on him, shocked not by the strength of her grip, but by the certainty in it. "Let go," he said. Maya's voice dropped. "Not if you're about to kill him." Caleb Royce moved as if to step forward again, then stopped when Colonel Shaw's medics shifted their stance. The air changed, not louder, heavier. Shaw spoke. Dr. Hollis stepped away from the table. Hollis did not move. "This is my ER." Shaw's answer came cold. "Not while that man is breathing." Linda Carver's phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down, read the screen, and her face emptied. Whatever legal department or government office she had called had just given her an answer she did not like. She swallowed. "Grant." Hollis turned slightly. Linda's voice was barely audible. "Step back." That wounded him more than Shaw's order. He looked around the room. At his residents. His nurses. The soldiers. The administrator. At Maya, who had not once tried to look victorious. That was the worst part. She did not care about winning. She cared about the pulse under her fingers. Slowly, Hollis lowered the scalpel. Maya released his wrist and immediately moved to Vance's side. "Tessa." "Yes." "Get 2 units of O negative on pressure. Warmed, not hot. I need suction vascular clamps, a thoracotomy tray, and sterile saline cooled to 4 degrees. Tessa moved before anyone else did. Maya looked at the nearest military medic. Containment kit. He opened one of the hard cases. Inside, nestled in foam, were tools that did not belong in any civilian hospital. Sealed extraction sleeves. Chemical stabilizing gel. Micro clamps. A small black container with warning labels and no manufacturer name. Hollis stared at it. "What is that?" Maya did not look up. "Something you were never supposed to need." Her hands moved over the tray. Fast. Clean. No wasted motion. The nurse everyone had ignored became something else under the lights. Her shoulders squared. Her voice sharpened. Her eyes stopped carrying the weight of memory and began measuring the distance between life and death. Tessa returned with blood. Maya pointed without looking. "Hang it there." "Not that line, the other one." "His vein will blow if you push through the right arm." Tessa obeyed. "How do you know?" "Because the swelling started in his shoulder." Tessa looked and saw it. Subtle. Almost invisible. But there, the room began to follow Maya's rhythm. Not because she demanded it. Because the patients stopped dying quite so quickly when they did. Outside, the trauma bay staff crowded behind the glass. Some were frightened, some ashamed. Some simply unable to reconcile the woman they knew with the person now commanding soldiers and surgeons with the force of a battlefield storm. Caleb Royce stood apart, his hands hanging uselessly at his sides. He remembered Maya hitting the floor. He remembered the sound of the tray. He remembered how light she had felt when he grabbed her arm and how wrong that memory now seemed. Not because she had been weak, but because he had mistaken gentleness for permission. Inside the room, Maya leaned close to Vance. "Derek, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered. Bennett Shaw said quietly, "He may know something." Maya's mouth tightened. "He knows he's dying." She bent over Vance again. "Derek, I need you still. Do you understand me?" His lips parted. A sound came out thin as smoke. "Raptor." Maya froze for half a second. Then she continued. Tessa noticed, so did Shaw. No one else did. Vance's fingers twitched against the sheet. His eyes opened just enough to show the terror inside them. "Not accident," he whispered. Maya kept her face still. "I know." He swallowed blood. "Glass." The word struck her like a hand around the throat. Glass. For years, that word had lived in a sealed room inside her mind. A word from classified reports. A word from men who died while their bodies betrayed every rule medicine had taught her. A word attached to a weapon no one admitted existed. She looked at Shaw. His expression told her he had heard it too. Maya drew a breath through her nose. The chemical smell was stronger now. "Seal the trauma bay," she said. Linda Carver stiffened. "Why?" Maya looked up at the glass wall at the faces beyond it, at the ordinary hospital that had suddenly become a place where old wars could bleed through the doors. Because if that fragment aerosolizes, everyone in this room becomes a patient. The staff moved then. Fast. Doors closed. Vents were adjusted. A military medic placed a portable barrier unit near the head of the bed. Tessa tied a new mask behind Maya's head, her fingers trembling only once. Maya noticed. "You're doing fine." Tessa gave a shaky breath. "I don't feel fine." "Good. Fine gets people careless." That almost made Tessa smile. Almost. Maya held out her hand. Scalpel. This time no one questioned her. The blade touched skin, and the past, which Maya Bennett had spent 9 months outrunning, opened beneath the lights of Mercy Ridge Trauma Center. The blade touched skin, and every sound in Trauma Bay 3 became sharper. The suction tube hissed. The heart monitor snapped out its uneven rhythm. Somewhere above them, the Blackhawk's engine still thundered against the roof, shaking dust loose from the ceiling vents. Maya Bennett made the first incision small. Too small, Dr. Grant Hollis thought. He had performed enough trauma surgeries to know what a dying man looked like when time had already left the room. Derek Vance was there now. Gray lips, cold sweat, blood pressure sinking through the floor. The kind of patient you opened fast and wide because hesitation killed. But Maya did not rush. That unsettled Hollis more than anything. Her hands moved with a terrible patience. "Tessa, keep suction low," Maya has said. "Do not chase the blood, let it come to you." Tessa Monroe nodded, her eyes locked on the wound. Low suction. Colonel Shaw. "I need your medic on the left side, not touching the field unless I ask." The medic stepped in without speaking. Hollis stood behind Maya, useless for the first time in his own trauma bay. His gloved hands hung near his waist. His instincts screamed at him to take over, but the room had shifted its loyalty. Not to her rank, not even to the soldiers, to the patient. And right now the patient was still alive, because everyone had stopped arguing with her. Maya opened the tissue layer by layer. Beneath the blood, the damage was strange. The wound did not behave like a normal puncture. The surrounding muscle had tightened around the fragment as if trying to strangle it. Thin, gray streaks spread beneath the surface, branching outward like frost on glass. Tessa saw it and swallowed. "That's not infection." "No," Maya said. "What is it?" Maya did not answer. She could have said chemical reaction. She could have said vascular collapse. She could have used language that made the room feel cleaner and safer. But there was no clean way to name a weapon inside a body. Derek Vance convulsed. His right arm jerked against the restraint. His head turned hard to one side. The monitor screamed. "Seizure activity," Tessa said. "I see it. Midazolam, 2 milligrams." Hollis took a step forward. "His pressure is too low for sedation." Maya did not look at him. His brain is firing itself apart. Tessa hesitated for half a breath. Maya's eyes lifted to hers. "Now." Tessa pushed the medication. Vance's body eased, but the numbers stayed bad. Blood pressure 38/20. Oxygen falling. Pulse irregular. The resident near the airway whispered, "He's circling." Maya heard him. She hated that phrase, circling. As if death were a bird overhead, and all they could do was watch its shadow grow. She reached deeper into the incision and felt the pressure change beneath her fingers. There it was, not the fragment itself. The space around it, a pocket of trapped blood and gas sealed inside damaged tissue. If Hollis had cut wide into the chest, the pressure would have released all at once. The shard would have shifted. The artery behind it would have torn open. Derek Vance would have died before anyone understood why. Maya extended 2 fingers. Clamp. Tessa placed it in her palm. Maya set the clamp without looking away. The bleeding slowed. The monitor steadied by a fraction. No one spoke. Hollis noticed it too. That tiny improvement. That almost invisible step away from death. His face tightened. Maya's voice stayed level. Containment sleeve. The military medic opened a sealed pouch and held out a transparent extraction sleeve with a rigid collar. Maya positioned it above the wound. "What are you doing?" Hollis asked. "Keeping the fragment from touching open air." "Why?" "Because if the coating dries, it flakes. If it flakes, it enters the air. If it enters the air, your trauma bay becomes a casualty zone." Linda Carver, standing just outside the sealed glass, turned even paler. Hollis stared at the wound. For the first time, he was not angry. He was afraid. Maya could feel his fear behind her, hot and restless. She did not blame him for that. Fear was useful when it made people careful. Pride was fear that had forgotten its place. "Cold saline," she said. Tessa handed her the syringe. Maya flushed the tissue around the fragment. The gray streaking slowed. The muscle stopped twitching under her fingertips. Again, Tessa gave her another syringe. Maya repeated the flush, then leaned closer. The fragment appeared. It was no larger than a fingernail clipping, dark silver, lodged at a cruel angle between a rib and a pulsing vessel. Under the surgical light, it glimmered like wet glass. Tessa whispered, "How can something that small do all this?" Maya's gaze did not move. Small things get underestimated. The words hung there too close to everything that had happened. Derek's heart rhythm stuttered. The monitor spit out a jagged warning. "VTAC," the resident called. "Pulse," Maya asked. "Thready." "Calcium." "Magnesium." "Prepare defib, but do not shock unless he loses pulse." Hollis frowned. "That rhythm could turn any second." "I know." "You should shock now?" "No." He looked ready to challenge her again. Then he stopped himself. Maya's left hand was inside the wound, holding pressure exactly where the patient needed it. Her right hand hovered over the fragment, waiting for the heart to decide whether it would keep fighting. Her face showed no panic, no performance, only attention. That was when Hollis began to understand the thing he had missed. Maya was not calm because she did not feel fear. She was calm because fear had lived with her so long it had become background noise. The medication went in. The rhythm bucked once, twice, then narrowed. Beep, beep, beep. Tessa let out a breath she had been holding. Maya did not. "Extraction gel." The medic handed her a small tube filled with clear compound. Maya coated the fragment and the tissue around it. "Everyone still," she said. The room obeyed. Even the machines seemed quieter. Maya slipped the extraction sleeve over the wound. Her hands worked inside the sleeve through sealed access points. She set one micro clamp at the base of the fragment, then another against the rib. The shard had to come out along the same path it entered. Not 1 degree higher, not 1 degree lower. Outside, the glass hospital staff watched as if they were seeing surgery from another planet. Caleb Royce stood near the hallway doors, arms crossed tightly over his chest. He could still feel Maya's arm under his grip. He wished he could scrub the memory out of his skin. A nurse beside him whispered she was military. Caleb did not answer. He had been a Marine once years ago, before his knee injury, before security work, before too many night shifts and too little patience. He knew what rank meant. He knew what a major was. He knew in a way the others did not what kind of woman had just been thrown to the floor. Inside the bay, Maya began to draw the shard out. 1 millimeter. Stop. Flush. Another millimeter. Stop. Clamp. Vance's blood pressure flickered upward, then dropped again. "Pressure's falling," Tessa said. "How much?" 32 systolic. More blood. "We're already on the 2nd unit." "Then hang the 3rd. Tessa moved. Hollis stepped beside her, grabbed the blood tubing, and helped spike the bag. Tessa looked at him, surprised. He did not meet her eyes. "Hold it higher," Maya said. Hollis lifted the bag. No one commented. The room had no space for shame. Not yet. Maya continued. The fragment slid another fraction free. Then the tissue beneath it tore. Blood surged into the sleeve. Arterial bleed, the medic said. I see it. Vance's pressure vanished. The monitor screamed. No pulse, the resident said. Maya's hand went deeper. Start compressions. The resident moved to the chest. Maya snapped, not there. You'll shift the fragment. He froze. Then where? Maya looked at Hollis. For half a second, everyone understood what she was asking. Hollis stepped forward. Internal cardiac massage. 2 fingers only through the subxiphoid access. Follow my hand. Do not press deep. His face changed. This was not command. This was trust given under fire. He took the position. Maya guided him with one blood-slick hand. Feel that. Hollis nodded once. Small pressure. Rhythm with the monitor. Do not get heroic. He began. The first compression was too hard. Maya caught his wrist. Less. He adjusted. The second was better. Again. Hollis kept going. Tessa stared at them, the disgraced ER director, and the quiet nurse who was not a nurse, both working over the same dying man, with no room left for ego. Maya isolated the tear by touch. There was too much blood to see. That was fine. Seeing was only one way to know the body. In the field vision often failed first. Smoke, dust, power loss, rain coming through a broken roof. She had learned to operate by pressure, by movement, by the way tissue resisted. Her fingers found the opening, clamp. Tessa slapped it into her palm. Maya placed it blind. The bleeding slowed. Pulse, she asked. The resident checked. A beat. Another. I have one. Hollis stopped compressions and pulled back, breathing hard. Maya did not thank him. There was no time. But she said good. It was enough. The fragment was almost free now. Derek Vance opened his eyes. No one expected it. His pupils were uneven, his gaze unfocused, but somehow he looked straight at Maya. His lips moved under the oxygen mask. Maya leaned closer without taking her hands from the wound. Don't talk. He talked anyway. Bennett. His voice was a scrape. I'm here. They followed the shipment. Maya's fingers stopped for one dangerous second. Colonel Shaw moved closer. What shipment? Vance's breathing hitched. Denver. Not safe. Maya forced her hands to move again. Derek, listen to me. You can brief us later. He gave the faintest shake of his head. There is no later. Tessa's eyes filled, but she blinked it away. Maya's voice lowered. There is if you let me work. Vance looked at her with the desperate clarity of a man standing at the edge of the dark. Glass vein, he whispered. Active. The name struck the room, even though most of them did not understand it. Colonel Shaw understood. So did Maya. For a moment, Mercy Ridge disappeared. Maya saw the field tent outside Mosul again. Saw gray streaks under skin. Saw a soldier's hand gripping her wrist with impossible strength as his blood turned thin and useless. Saw the report that came later, black ink over half the page, every important truth buried behind classification marks. Project Glass Vein. A weapon that was not supposed to exist. A compound built to fragment on impact, lodge inside tissue, and attack the body from within. It did not kill like a bullet. It persuaded the body to destroy itself. Vascular collapse, nerve storms, delayed organ failure, agony disguised as trauma. The official file called it a discontinued experimental system. The bodies had called it something else. Maya pulled the fragment free. The shard slid into the containment sleeve with a faint, metallic click. The military medic sealed the collar instantly. Contained, he said. Maya did not relax. Do not move it. Do not open it. Do not breathe near it unless you hate being alive. The medic gave a grim nod. Tessa pressed gauze against the wound as Maya repaired the damaged vessel. Hollis assisted silently now. He passed clamps before she asked for them. He adjusted suction. He watched her hands like a student, not a rival. Vance's numbers crawled upward. Not good, but possible. Maya tied off the final bleed and packed the wound. Pressure. Tessa checked. 78/50. Again. 82/52. The room exhaled. Vance was not saved. Not yet. But death had taken one step back. Maya straightened, and for the first time since the incision, her body remembered its own weight. Pain flared in her knee where she had struck the floor. Her shoulder ached. Her throat tasted like metal. Colonel Shaw stepped near the sealed container. How long before the compound destabilizes? Maya looked at the shard through the clear sleeve. That depends on whether this is the same version. Shaw's eyes narrowed. You think it is not. I know it is not. Hollis looked up. How? Maya pointed to the gray streaking beneath Vance's skin. The old version spread through blood. This one moved through muscle and nerve before we released the pressure pocket. It is faster, more stable, more deliberate. Linda Carver's voice came through the intercom, thin and shaken. Major Bennett, is there any risk to the rest of the hospital? Maya glanced at the ventilation panel. Not if that seal holds. And if it does not? Maya looked through the glass at the crowded ER beyond. Patients on gurneys. Nurses at stations. Families waiting under fluorescent lights with coats still wet from snow. If it does not clear the East Wing, and pray your emergency drills were not just paperwork. No one spoke after that. The military medic placed the sealed shard into the black containment case. It locked with 3 hard clicks. Colonel Shaw gave an order into his radio. Raptor Command, this is Shaw. Confirmed glass vein exposure at Mercy Ridge. 1 survivor, 1 fragment contained. Initiate federal medical quarantine protocol. Maya turned sharply. Number. Shaw looked at her. You know the protocol. I know what panic does to hospitals. If this spreads, it won't. You cannot promise that. Maya stepped closer, voice low enough that only he could hear. If you lock this place down with no explanation, half the staff will run and the other half will freeze. Give me 10 minutes to stabilize him and move the exposed team into controlled observation. Shaw held her stare. You are not in command here. Maya's expression did not change. Then find someone here who understands the wound. That silenced him. He had known Maya long enough to recognize the line she had just drawn. Not rebellion. Not ego. Necessity. Shaw keyed his radio again. Delay, full lockdown. Controlled containment only. Await further instruction. Linda Carver looked like she might collapse with relief. Maya turned back to Vance. He needs imaging. Full vascular scan, brain CT coagulation panel every 15 minutes, and a toxicology draw that does not go through your standard lab. Hollis said our lab can process. No, Maya said. He stopped, not offended this time. Listening. Maya continued. Your lab tech opens the wrong vial without respiratory protection, and we add another patient. Hollis nodded once. Then where does it go? Colonel Shaw answered, our mobile unit. Maya looked at Tessa. You are coming with me for transfer. Tessa blinked. Me. You know his lines. You know what we changed. And you listen. That last part landed softly, but it mattered. Tessa nodded. Yes, ma'am. Maya almost corrected her. Almost. Then let it go. They prepared Vance for movement. The ordinary rhythm of medicine returned but altered. Every strap, every tube, every line mattered more now. The room felt like a bomb had been disarmed but not removed. Hollis helped secure the portable monitor. His hands were steady now. Maya noticed. Watch the left chest drain during transport, she said. He looked at her. You want me in the elevator? I want someone who knows what a tension collapse looks like and will not improvise. The words were not warm, but they were not cruel. Hollis accepted them. Yes. As they rolled Vance toward the sealed trauma doors, the staff outside stepped back. Maya saw their faces. Fear. Awe. Guilt. Curiosity. She hated all of it. She had never wanted to become a story people told in whispers. She had never wanted soldiers storming into her civilian life. She had wanted a badge that meant less a night shift, that asked less a city where snow softened the noise. But the world had a way of finding the exact wound a person tried to hide. The doors opened. Cold air from the hallway hit her damp scrubs. Caleb Royce stood near the wall. Maya passed him without looking. He spoke anyway. Major Bennett. She stopped the gurney with one hand. His throat worked. I'm sorry. The hallway listened. Maya turned her head just enough to see him. For a moment, he looked like a man asking for punishment because forgiveness was too large to imagine. Maya's voice was quiet. Not now. He flinched. Then she added, help clear the hall. Caleb straightened. Yes, ma'am. He moved, instantly guiding patients, staff, and visitors away from the path. He became useful. For the moment, that was all Maya needed from him. They reached the elevator. The doors opened. Inside, the space was too small, too bright, too full of reflected faces. Maya stood at Vance's head. Tessa stayed near the IV lines. Hollis watched the chest tube. Shaw entered last with the containment case chained to his wrist. The elevator doors closed. For 3 seconds, there was only the hum of machinery. Then Vance's monitor changed. A subtle drop in oxygen. Maya saw it first. Hollis. I see it. The chest drain had stopped bubbling. Hollis checked the line. Kink near the lower rail. Fix it without lifting him. He adjusted the tubing carefully. The bubbling returned. Oxygen climbed. Maya gave one nod. Hollis looked at the monitor, then at her. You knew before the alarm. So did you. He said nothing. The elevator descended. Tessa watched Maya from the side, seeing sweat at her temple, now seeing the slight tremor in her left hand, only when it was not touching the patient. Maya caught her looking. What? Tessa shook her head. Nothing. Say it. Tessa hesitated. You look like you've done this in worse places. The elevator lights flickered as it passed another floor. Maya looked at the doors. I have. Tessa waited, but Maya said no more. The doors opened into the emergency ambulance corridor where military vehicles idled beneath the storm. Snow blew sideways through the open bay. Red and blue lights flashed against wet pavement. Soldiers had formed a perimeter. Hospital staff stood behind taped lines, watching their familiar workplace become something foreign. They loaded Vance into the mobile surgical unit parked outside. It was built into an armored medical transport larger than an ambulance, heavier, humming with power. Inside were imaging screens, surgical lights, sealed storage, and equipment Mercy Ridge did not officially know existed. Maya stepped in and immediately checked the monitors. Scan him. A medic slid Vance into position. Images appeared on the screen moments later. Maya leaned in. The first scan showed the chest wound repaired but angry. The second showed vascular irritation spreading beyond the injury. The third made her go still. Tessa noticed. What is it? Maya enlarged the image. There, near the lower spine, was another speck. Tiny, dark, waiting. Hollis stared at it. There were 2 fragments. Maya's face hardened. No. Shaw looked at her. Bennett. She zoomed in again. The speck had not entered from the wound path. It was too deep, too clean, too perfectly positioned near the nerve root. Maya's voice turned cold. That one was injected. The mobile unit seemed to shrink around them. Tessa whispered, injected by who? Derek Vance's eyes opened again. His gaze rolled until it found Maya. His mouth moved. Maya leaned down. What did you say? Vance forced the words through broken breath. Inside hospital. The monitor beeped steadily, indifferent to the terror those words carried. Maya looked through the rear doors of the armored unit back toward Mercy Ridge Trauma Center, where hundreds of patients, staff, and visitors still breathed under bright lights and false safety. Then, somewhere inside the hospital, the power flickered once and stayed on. Maya reached for a fresh pair of gloves. Bring him back inside. No one moved for half a second. Not because they did not understand the order, but because they understood it too well. The hospital was supposed to be the safe place. The hard walls, the bright lights. The place where the wounded came after the violence ended. But Derek Vance had just told them the danger was already inside Mercy Ridge, wearing a badge, walking a hallway, passing through doors that opened for anyone who looked like they belonged. Colonel Ethan Shaw stared at the scan, glowing on the monitor. The second fragment sat near Vance's spine like a secret. Too clean, too deliberate. too precise to be battlefield damage. Dr. Grant Hollis leaned closer, his face as if stripped of every trace of arrogance. That fragment was placed after the injury. Maya Bennett pulled on fresh gloves, yes, inside Mercy Ridge. She looked at Derek's pale face. Likely after arrival. Tessa Monroe's voice came out small, but he was never alone. Maya checked Vance's pupils with a penlight. He did not need to be alone. He only needed a moment when everyone was looking at the wound instead of the man. The words settled over them. Everyone in that room had done exactly that. They had watched the bleeding. They had watched the argument. They had watched Maya get dragged out. In the noise, someone had touched Derek Vance and turned him into a timer. Shaw stepped toward the rear doors of the armored medical unit and gave a sharp hand signal to the soldiers outside. Lock down every exit. No one leaves the building. No deliveries. No staff transfer. No vehicle movement without my authorization. Maya shook her head. Quietly. Shaw looked back. If the person who did this knows we found it, they run, or they kill him now. Shaw's jaw tightened. Then he changed the order into his radio voice, low and controlled. Soft perimeter. Plain clothes posture inside. Watch exits. Do not alarm civilian staff. Tessa stared at the hospital through the open doors. Snow cut across the ambulance bay. Mercy Ridge looked ordinary from the outside, almost peaceful, its windows glowing gold against the storm. Inside that glow, someone was hunting. Derek's monitor gave a warning chirp. Maya turned back instantly. His oxygen was stable, but his heart rate was climbing. His blood pressure, which had fought its way upward after surgery, began to slip again. The spinal fragment is activating, she said. Hollis looked at the scan. What does that mean medically? It means his nervous system is being attacked from the inside. What do you need? Maya looked at him. The question was simple. The fact that he asked it mattered. I need a sterile room, cold saline, a vascular kit, fluoroscopy, neuromonitoring, and someone who can follow instructions without defending his resume. Hollis absorbed it. You'll have it. They moved fast. The armored unit doors opened wide. Soldiers formed a loose shield as Vance was rolled back toward Mercy Ridge. This time there was no spectacle, no shouted commands, no dramatic announcement. Just controlled movement through falling snow and flashing emergency lights. Maya walked at the head of the gurney. Her hand stayed on the frame, not for balance, for possession. Derek Vance was not dying on someone else's pride tonight. As they crossed into the ambulance corridor, Caleb Royce was there, clearing the path with 2 other security guards. His face tightened when he saw them returning. Major Bennett. Maya did not slow. We need Trauma 2 sealed and cleared. Caleb nodded. On it. No panic, no questions in the hallway. Yes, ma'am. He moved with a new kind of urgency. Not loud, not forceful for show. Useful. Maya noticed but said nothing. The corridor smelled of wet coats, disinfectant, and electrical heat. Normal hospital smells. Human smells. That made the threat worse. If danger came wearing a mask and holding a syringe, it could pass through any door in America. Tessa pushed the IV pole beside the gurney. Her knuckles were white. Maya saw that too. You still with me? Tessa nodded too quickly. Yes. Do not outrun your hands. What? When your fear gets ahead of your hands, you make mistakes. Breathe slower than the monitor. Tessa looked at the screen. Beep, beep, beep. She drew one breath. Then another. Her hand steadied. Hollis walked on the opposite side, one hand near the chest tube, eyes scanning Vance's lines like he was seeing a patient for the first time all over again. Not as a case, not as proof of his authority, as a living man balanced on thin wire. They reached Trauma 2. Caleb had already cleared it. A respiratory tech stood at the doorway, confused and frightened. Maya pointed to the supply cart. Leave the sealed airway tray, then step outside. The tech obeyed. Inside the room was smaller than Trauma 3, colder, easier to control. Maya preferred that. The fewer doors a room had, the fewer ways death could enter. Transfer on 3, she said. Together, they moved Vance from gurney to table. He groaned as the shift sent pain through his body. His eyes opened again, unfocused but aware enough to suffer. Maya leaned over him. Derek listened to me. "There is another fragment near your spine. I need to remove it." His lips barely moved. "No, there is enough." "No." His fingers twitched against the sheet. "Not for me. For them." Shaw stepped closer. "Who?" Vance's gaze rolled toward him. "North Star." Shaw went still. Maya saw it. "You know the name." Shaw did not answer. That was an answer. Hollis looked between them. "What is North Star?" Maya kept checking Vance's vitals, but her voice was flat. A defense contractor that should have stayed in sealed files. Derek sucked in a wet breath. "Meridian Division." Shaw's face hardened. North Star Meridian was shut down. Vance gave something that might have been a laugh if his body had more strength. Not shut down, sold. The monitor spiked. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stop talking." Derek gripped her wrist. His fingers were cold. Maya. The use of her first name moved through her like a knife turned slowly. He knew her from before. Not well. Not like Shaw. But enough. Enough to remember the woman who had stood under field lights with blood up to her elbows and refused to step back from the table until someone made her. His eyes held the ruined clarity of a man with one message left. "They are collecting survival data." Tessa whispered survival data. Maya's expression did not change, but something behind her eyes went dark. Hollis looked sick. "You mean they are testing it on people?" No one answered. They did not need to. Derek's hand slipped from Maya's wrist. His body arched. The monitor screamed. "Heart rate 140, Tessa called. "Temperature," Maya asked. 103.8. "Cooling blanket. Ice packs to groin and axilla. Cold saline ready." Hollis moved before Tessa could ask for help. Maya snapped on a lead apron and positioned the portable fluoroscopy unit. "Shaw, I need the containment kit open again." A medic placed the black case on the counter and unlocked it. Maya pointed to Hollis. "You are on hemodynamics. Say every change out loud." Hollis nodded. "Pressure 70/46. Heart rate 142. Oxygen 91. Tessa neuro checks every 2 minutes. If his legs twitch, tell me which side first." "Yes." Maya looked at the scan one more time. The second fragment had been injected deep near the lumbar spine, close to a nerve root and a small vessel. Removing it would be different from the chest wound. There was less bleeding risk, but more danger of paralysis, chemical spread, and sudden cardiac collapse if the nervous system reacted. This was not surgery. This was disarming a weapon inside a living body. Maya cleaned the site herself. The room narrowed around her. Every unnecessary detail disappeared. No snow, no soldiers, no shame, no memory, only anatomy. Skin, muscle, nerve, vessel, fragment. She made the incision. Derek's blood welled dark and slow. "Pressure 66/40, Hollis said. "Noted." Maya advanced with careful pressure. Tessa watched the patient's legs. Right foot twitch. Maya stopped. "How strong?" "Small, toes only." "Good. That means I am close." Hollis looked at her. "Good. Better than blind." She adjusted angle. The fluoroscopy image shifted on the screen. The fragment appeared and disappeared with tiny movements, a bright fleck against shadowed bone. Maya's breathing slowed. The room followed her without meaning to. Outside the glass, Linda Carver stood with both hands pressed together under her chin. She had stopped making phone calls. For the first time in years, the hospital administrator had nothing to manage except consequence. Beside her, Caleb watched the hallway. He studied every face that passed. A janitor pushing a cart. A resident with a tablet. A woman in billing scrubs crying near the nurse's station. A respiratory therapist pulling masks from a supply cabinet. Everyone looked ordinary. That was the problem. Inside trauma 2. Maya reached the fragment's pocket. The tissue around it was inflamed and slick. Gray threads had started to spread along the nerve sheath. "Cold saline," she said. Tessa handed it over. Maya flushed the area. Derek's body jerked. Left leg, Tessa said. Stronger. Maya stopped again. The monitor spiked. Heart rate 160, Hollis said. Pressure dropping, 58/30. Vagal storm, Maya said. Atropine ready, but do not push. Hollis held the syringe. Tell me when. Derek's jaw clenched. His back bowed against the restraints. Maya leaned closer to him. Derek, stay with my voice. His eyes moved beneath closed lids. You are in Denver. You are at Mercy Ridge. You are not in the convoy. You are not in the blast. You are on my table, and I am not done with you. The room stilled. Not because the words were dramatic, because they sounded like something she had said before. Maybe to him, maybe to others, maybe to herself. Derek's heart rate eased by 5 beats, then 10. Pressure 64/40, Hollis said. Maya extended her hand. Extraction sleeve. The medic gave it to her. The spinal fragment was smaller than the chest shard, but its placement was worse. Whoever injected it had known enough anatomy to cause maximum instability without instant death. That meant the attacker had training, medical training. Maya's eyes flicked up. Hollis. Yes. Who had hands on him before the first surgery. Hollis went pale. Paramedics, intake nurse, trauma resident. Myself, Tessa, 2 techs. Security near the hall. Radiology transport never happened because he crashed first. Anyone give medication. Paramedics gave fentanyl and fluids. We started blood. I ordered antibiotics, but he stopped. Maya looked at him. But what? The antibiotic was delayed. Why? He searched memory under pressure. Nurse said the vial cracked in the warmer. Pharmacy sent another. Maya's hand froze above the wound. Tessa turned slowly. I did not give antibiotics. Hollis looked at her. I know. It was after you went for blood. Maya's voice was quiet. Who brought the replacement? Hollis closed his eyes for a second, trying to see it. A float nurse, I think. Blue cap, mask, I did not know her. Maya looked at Shaw. Shaw was already speaking into his radio. Find a female staff member in a blue surgical cap who accessed Trauma 3 during the Vance intake. Quietly, Maya returned to the wound. There was no room to chase the attacker while the weapon remained inside Derek's spine. Containment gel. Tessa placed it in her hand. Maya coated the fragment. Derek's right leg jerked hard. Right leg, Tessa said. Full movement. Pressure, 49, Hollis said. Heart rate dropping now. 80, 70. Vagal crash. Push atropine. Hollis pushed it. Nothing happened. Heart rate 60. Maya adjusted the clamp. Come on. 50. Tessa's voice cracked. Maya. I know. The fragment shifted. Gray fluid leaked from the pocket. The monitor screamed, then faltered. Hollis grabbed the crash cart handle. No pulse. Maya did not move away from the wound. Start compressions. Hollis looked at the surgical field. We will contaminate. Compressions now. He started. The table shook. Maya kept her hand steady inside the incision while the body moved beneath her. Every compression threatened to change the angle. Every second without circulation stole brain cells from a man who had already survived too much, epinephrine, Hollis said. Give it. Tessa pushed the medication with shaking hands. Maya saw the fragment, not on the screen, in the wound. A dark point at the center of gray swelling. She slid the sleeve over it. The room became sound and movement. Compressions. Monitor alarm. Tessa counting under her breath. Shaw at the door, one hand near his sidearm, eyes split between the hallway and the table. Maya closed the microclamp. The fragment resisted. For one terrible second it felt fused to the nerve. Maya's mind flashed to Mosul. A young soldier on the table. A fragment she could not reach. A commander shouting over the radio. A body going still under her hands. Not again. She changed the angle by less than a breath. The fragment released. Maya pulled it into the sleeve and sealed it. Contained. Hollis continued compressions. Pulse check, Maya said. He stopped. Tessa felt at the neck. Nothing. The monitor showed a flat, ugly line trying to become final. Hollis looked at Maya. For the first time, he did not look like a man protecting his pride. He looked like a doctor facing the edge. Maya. She climbed onto the side rail. Move. Hollis stepped aside. Maya placed both hands over Derek's chest. She began compressions herself. Hard. Precise. Relentless. Derek Vance. You do not get to die after making me come back for you. Tessa pushed another breath through the bag. Hollis watched the monitor. Nothing. Maya kept going. One compression. Another. Sweat slid down her temple. Her injured knee screamed. The room around her blurred. Charge to 200, Hollis said. Do it. The paddles charged. Tessa stepped back. Hollis placed them. Clear. The shock hit Derek's body. His chest rose. The monitor gave one thin line. Then chaos. Then rhythm. Beep. 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 Tessa covered her mouth with one hand. Hollis checked the pulse. I have him. Maya stayed braced above Derek for one more second, as if her body had not received the message yet. Then she stepped down. Her legs almost failed. Tessa caught her elbow. Maya pulled away gently. I'm fine. Tessa did not argue, but her eyes said she knew better. Hollis looked at the monitor, then at the sealed spinal fragment, then at Maya. His voice was rough. I would not have found it. Maya peeled off one bloody glove. No. He swallowed. I would have called time. Maya looked at Derek Vance alive by a margin too thin to name. Yes, the truth did not need softness. Hollis nodded once like a man accepting a sentence. Then Shaw's radio crackled. A soldier's voice came through. Colonel, we found the blue cap. Everyone turned. The voice continued. Staff, locker room, east corridor. Cap and mask discarded. No ID. Security footage shows a woman entering through service access 18 minutes before the patient arrived. Shaw's eyes sharpened. Current location. A pause. Unknown. But there is something else. Maya looked toward the hallway. The radio hissed. She left a syringe case behind. Same residue as the fragment container. Tessa whispered she is still inside. The lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim for 3 seconds before emergency backup steadied them. A distant alarm began somewhere deeper in the hospital. Not a code alarm. Not a fire alarm. A security door alarm. Maya looked at Derek Vance, then at the sealed containment case, then at the hallway full of patients who had no idea what was moving among them. She pulled on another pair of gloves. Hollis stared at her. You cannot keep operating like this. Maya tied the gloves at the wrist. I am not operating. She stepped towards the door. I am hunting the source. Maya Bennett stepped into the hallway before anyone could decide whether to stop her. The emergency lights had turned Mercy Ridge into a different hospital. The polished floors reflected a dull red glow. Monitors flashed behind glass doors. Patients whispered from curtained bays. Somewhere down the east corridor, the security alarm kept pulsing in short, angry bursts. Not loud enough to cause panic. Loud enough to tell Maya that someone had forced a door. Colonel Ethan Shaw moved beside her with 2 soldiers close behind. You are not clearing a hospital wing, he said. Maya did not slow. I know hospitals better than your men. My men know threats. She is not moving like a threat. She is moving like staff. That stopped him from arguing. Maya was right. A gunman moved through a hospital like a storm. An insider moved like weather that had always been there. Quiet shoes, lowered eyes. A badge clipped to fabric. A tray in one hand. A mask covering half the face. People stepped aside because hospitals trained them to step aside for anyone who looked busy. Tessa Monroe caught up behind them, still in blood-stained scrubs. Maya turned. Stay with Vance. Dr. Hollis is with him. That is not what I said. Tessa's breath caught, but she did not leave. You told me to listen. I am listening. And I am telling you that you look like you are about to fall over. Maya stared at her. Tessa's voice dropped. Let me be useful. For a second, Maya saw the younger nurse not as a liability, but as a mirror of something she used to be. Determined, afraid, too stubborn to understand that courage had teeth. Maya handed her a sealed mask from a wall station. "Stay behind me. Touch nothing unless I tell you." Tessa took it. Yes. They moved. Past the medication room. Past the waiting area where families sat under television screens that still played silent weather updates. Snowstorm warnings rolled across the bottom. People looked up as the soldiers passed, then looked away quickly, pretending not to be afraid. Maya watched faces. Fear was normal. Curiosity was normal. Stillness was not. A woman in pharmacy green scrubs stood near the vending machines, clutching a clipboard too tightly. Maya clocked the badge, the shoes, the hands. Real employee, scared, not hiding. A man in housekeeping pushed a linen bin near the elevators. He had gray hair, tired eyes, and a limp. Real employee. 30 years of lifting more than his body wanted to lift. A young resident came around the corner with his phone in his hand, stopped at the sight of Shaw's soldiers, and nearly dropped it. Real fear. Too uncontrolled to be trained. Maya kept moving. The east corridor grew quieter. That was wrong. Hospitals had rhythms. Even in the dead hours, they breathed. Wheels rattled, shoes squeaked, intercoms murmured. Someone coughed, someone cried, someone laughed too loudly because exhaustion had burned through manners. But the east corridor had gone thin and hollow. Maya raised one hand. Everyone stopped. The alarm clicked off. Silence rushed in behind it. Shaw lifted 2 fingers. His soldiers spread out. Miyat looked at the doors. Supply storage, staff locker room, clean utility, service access, stairwell. The kind of places no visitor noticed. The kind of places a killer would use. Tessa whispered, "What are we listening for?" Maya closed her eyes. At first only the hospital, ventilation, a distant pump, the soft crackle of a radio. Then something else, water running. Not from a sink. Too low, too steady. Maya opened her eyes. Decontamination shower. Shaw pointed to the clean utility room. A soldier approached the door. Maya stopped him with a look. If she handled glass vein residue, she may be trying to wash it off. If you scare her, she may spill whatever she has left. Shaw's voice was quiet. Or inject herself and die before we question her. That too. Maya stepped to the door. The handle was wet. She looked at Shaw. He nodded once. Maya pushed the door open. Steam rolled out. Inside, the emergency decontamination shower was running full blast. Water hammered the tile floor and swirled pink into the drain. A blue surgical cap lay soaked near the wall. A disposable mask floated against a metal grate. A scrub top had been shoved into a hazardous waste bin. No woman. No attacker. No syringe. Tessa swallowed. She changed. Maya crouched near the drain. A thin gray sheen clung to the water before vanishing. She rinsed residue. Shaw stepped in carefully. "How exposed are we?" Maya looked at the open shower, the ventilation intake above it, the wet footprints leading toward the rear door. "Not enough to kill us if we do not touch it." Tessa lifted one foot slightly, suddenly aware of the floor. Maya stood. The footprints were partial, small, hospital clogs. They led toward the service stairwell. Shaw spoke into his radio. Subject left clean utility through East Service stairs. Possible clothing change. Female. Unknown uniform. Lock stair exits. A voice answered. Copy. Maya moved to the hazardous waste bin and used forceps to lift the discarded scrub top. No badge. No label. But inside the pocket was a torn piece of tape with black letters. NRTHSTR. Maya stared at it. Shaw saw it and went still. Tessa looked between them. "What is North Star?" Maya let the fabric drop back into the bin. "Trouble with lawyers." Shaw's face remained hard. That is one way to say it. The name opened a door inside Maya she had tried to weld shut. North Star Meridian had been a private defense research division with offices in Virginia, Texas, and a testing facility buried so deep inside military contracting paperwork that most people who signed approvals never knew what they had approved. They developed battlefield stabilization technology, autonomous triage systems, chemical delivery platforms, and things that sounded humane in conference rooms until they were tested on living tissue. Project Glass Vein had begun with a beautiful lie, a non-lethal disabling system. That was what the brief called it. A way to stop enemy combatants without mass casualties. A micro-fragmentation compound designed to create temporary vascular shock and neurological disruption. The kind of language that let men in suits sleep after building nightmares. But bodies did not care what a project was supposed to be. The compound spread unpredictably. It turned wounds into chemical events. It triggered clotting failure nerve storms, tissue swelling, and delayed collapse. In early testing, animals died badly. In field exposure, soldiers died worse. Maya had read the classified medical annex after Mosul. She had not been supposed to see all of it. A friend in pathology had given her the file because he could not stand the thought of her blaming herself for every body on the table. Half the pages were blacked out. Enough remained. Glass Vein had not failed because it was too weak. It had failed because it was too effective. Maya stepped out of the utility room. The hallway felt colder now. Shaw watched her carefully. You knew North Star was connected. I suspected. Since when? Since Vance said glass. That was 5 minutes ago. Maya looked at him. Some suspicions do not need time. A soldier jogged toward them from the stairwell. Colonel's stairwell is clear from 3 to basement. Door alarm triggered at loading level. Camera feed went dark near supply intake. Shaw's voice sharpened. Dark how? Looped footage. Someone knew the system. Tessa whispered, "She is not just a nurse." No, Maya said, "She is trained." Shaw's radio crackled again. "Colonel, we have a problem in Trauma 2. Patient Vance is awake and asking for Bennett." Maya turned immediately. Shaw grabbed her arm, not hard, but enough to stop her. "We need the attacker." Maya looked at his hand until he released her. "Vance knows why she came back. She may leave the building. If Vance dies, she already won." Shaw hated that she was right. They returned fast. The hospital seemed more awake now, not from understanding, but from instinct. Staff could feel the pressure changing. Nurses spoke in lower voices. Doctors glanced at soldiers and pretended not to. Families pulled coats around themselves, though the building was warm. When Maya reached Trauma 2, Dr. Hollis was at Derek Vance's bedside, one hand on the rail, the other adjusting oxygen. He looked up with visible relief. He keeps trying to talk. Maya moved beside Vance. His face was waxen. Sweat soaked his hair. His body had survived 2 fragments, 2 collapses, and more pain than sedation could fully bury. His eyes opened when he heard her. "Maya, I am here." His gaze drifted past her toward Shaw. "Did you find her?" "Not yet," Shaw said. Vance's mouth tightened. "Then she found you." Maya leaned closer. "Who is she?" His breathing hitched. "Courier. For North Star." A faint nod. "Name." His eyes squeezed shut as pain passed through him. Maya placed 2 fingers against his wrist. "Derek, stay with me." He forced the word out. "Vale." Shaw repeated it. "Vale. Anika Vale." Vance's voice broke around the name. Former combat medic. Contracted after discharge. Meridian used her for field collection. Tessa looked sick. Field collection means patience. Maya's eyes stayed on Vance. "Samples, data, survivors." Vance gave the smallest nod. "She marks them. Tracks reaction time." Hollis looked toward the sealed fragment case. The second shard was not meant to kill him immediately. "No," Maya said. Vance breathed in through his teeth. "It was meant to measure how long I stayed alive after extraction." The room went still. Even Shaw's soldiers looked unsettled. Maya felt the anger arrive slowly. Not hot. Hot anger burned out too fast. This was colder, heavier, the kind that settled behind the ribs and made every detail sharper. North Star Meridian was not hiding from failure. It was studying it. Hollis gripped the bed rail. "Why bring him here?" Vance looked at Maya. "Because of you." The answer struck harder than any alarm. Tessa's eyes moved to Maya. Maya did not blink. Vance swallowed. They knew Raptor files. Knew you were in Denver. They needed to know if the new compound could beat your protocol. Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. So they sent him to my hospital. Not just sent. Vance winced, arranged. Shaw stepped closer. Who inside Mercy Ridge helped them? Vance tried to answer, but his heart rhythm jumped. Tessa looked at the monitor. Rate 150 again. Maya checked his pupils. Pressure. Hollis answered. 86/50. Holding, but not well. Vance grabbed Maya's sleeve with sudden strength. Not Mercy. What? His eyes burned with urgency. Not hospital, your name. They used your name in the transfer chain. Maya frowned. Then Shaw understood. They forged authorization from her old unit. Vance blinked once. Yes. Maya's stomach tightened. Someone had not only found her, someone had opened the past, copied its voice, and used it to bring death through her doors. Shaw's phone rang. He looked at the screen, then stepped away. His face changed as he listened. Maya watched him. When he returned, he no longer looked like a commander managing an incident. He looked like a man watching a map catch fire. Walter Reed just reported 3 cases with similar wound signatures. Maya said nothing. Shaw continued. Seattle has one. Salt Lake City has one. Arlington has one. All federal personnel. All connected to North Star Meridian investigations. Hollis whispered, This is bigger than one patient. Vance's hand slipped from Maya's sleeve. Rachel, he said. Maya froze. Shaw heard it too. What did he say? Maya's mouth had gone dry. Rachel who? Vance's eyes fluttered. Sloan. The name cut through years. Rachel Sloan had been in Mosul. Not on Maya's table that night, but close enough to hear the screaming. An intelligence analyst with blood on her face and a radio in her hand refusing evacuation until every wounded soldier had been loaded. She had survived the blast, survived the investigation, survived the silence that followed. Maya had not spoken to her in 6 years. Tessa saw the change in Maya's face. You know her. Maya turned to Shaw. Where is the Salt Lake patient? Shaw checked his phone. St. Barrow Medical Center. The world narrowed. Maya could hear the old field tent again. The dying monitors. The desert wind. Rachel shouting coordinates through a cracked radio while Maya tried to keep a soldier from bleeding out. Vance's lips moved. Maya bent close. She asked for you, he whispered. Maya closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. When she opened them, the room had changed again. Not around her. Inside her. Shaw saw it and lowered his voice. Maya. No. You do not know what I'm going to say. Yes, I do. She may have the same exposure. Then send your team. They already have doctors. Maya looked at him. He did not finish. Doctors were not enough. Not for Glass Vein. Not for North Star. Not for a weapon designed around the exact weaknesses of people who thought wounds followed rules. Hollis spoke quietly. Go. Maya looked at him. He stood beside Vance, pale but steady, no longer trying to be the biggest person in the room. I can keep him stable with your protocol, he said. Tessa knows the lines. Your military team has containment. If there is another patient like him, she needs you more than we do. Tessa stepped forward. I am not leaving Vance. Maya studied her. The younger nurse looked terrified, but not fragile. Maya nodded. Coag panel every 15 minutes. Neuro checks every 5. If his temperature rises above 102, cool him aggressively. No standard lab, no unnecessary movement. Nobody enters without 2 staff confirming identity. Tessa repeated every word back. Maya corrected one detail. Tessa repeated it again. Good. Maya turned to Hollis. If the wound edges turn gray again, do not cut. Call Shaw's medic and cool the tissue first. Hollis nodded. I will. Maya looked at him for another second. Then she said the closest thing to trust she had left to give. Keep him alive. Hollis answered without pride. I will try. Maya grabbed a clean trauma jacket from the supply rack. Her scrubs were still stained with Derek's blood. Her knee throbbed from the fall. Her hands ached from compressions. She had not eaten since early afternoon. None of that mattered because Rachel Sloane was lying somewhere under hospital lights in Utah, carrying a wound that ordinary medicine would misread until it was too late. Shaw walked with her toward the roof elevator. Outside the trauma bay, Caleb Royce stood at the corridor intersection. "Major." Maya paused. He looked like he wanted to apologize again, but he had learned enough not to waste time. "East Wing is clear. We are checking badges in pairs. Nobody moves alone." Maya nodded. "Good." He swallowed. "I will find Vale." She looked at him then. Really looked. "Do not try to be brave by yourself." Caleb absorbed it. "Yes, ma'am." The roof elevator opened. Cold air swept down the shaft before the doors fully parted. Maya and Shaw stepped inside. As the elevator rose, the noise of the hospital fell away, floor by floor, replaced by the deep mechanical thump of waiting rotors. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Shaw said, "You should have told me where you were." Maya stared at the closed doors. "You knew." "Not officially." That was the point. He exhaled through his nose. "You cannot outrun this forever." "I was not outrunning it." "No." She turned her head. "I was trying to live without being useful to men who only call when someone is already bleeding." Shaw did not answer immediately. The elevator climbed. Maya could see his reflection in the metal doors. Older than he had been in Maryland. More lines around the eyes. More ghosts standing behind him. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "I signed your release because I thought distance might save you." Maya looked away. It helped. For a while. The doors opened to the roof. Wind hit them like a wall. The Blackhawk waited under storm lights, its rotors turning snow, whipping in violent spirals across the landing pad. A medic ducked low and waved them forward. Maya stepped into the storm. For 1 second, the sound and snow became desert dust and rotor wash. Her body remembered running toward helicopters with blood soaking through her sleeves. Remembered counting stretchers. Remembered praying not for miracles, but for enough time to make one. She climbed into the Blackhawk. Shaw followed. The door slammed shut. The aircraft lifted away from Mercy Ridge, and Denver dropped beneath them in fractured lights. Maya looked through the small window at the hospital shrinking below. Somewhere inside, Derek Vance was alive by the width of a blade. Tessa was learning how heavy trust could be. Hollis was discovering that humility had a pulse. Anika Vale was still moving, still dangerous, still carrying North Star's secrets through civilian halls. But Rachel Sloane was waiting. Maya took the headset from the wall and put it on. Shaw leaned toward her over the engine noise. "St. Barrow says their neurosurgeon wants to operate before we arrive." Maya's eyes snapped to him. "Tell him not to touch the fragment. He says the patient has signs of brainstem pressure. Tell him if he pulls it, he kills her." Shaw relayed the message. Maya closed her eyes and pictured Rachel as she had last seen her. Younger. Blood-streaked. Voice steady over radio static while the world burned around them. Then she pictured her under clean hospital lights surrounded by doctors who had no idea the wound was waiting for them to make the obvious mistake. Maya opened her eyes. "Get me his name." Shaw listened through the headset. "Dr. Owen Pierce." Maya took the radio. Her voice came through low and clear. "Dr. Pierce, this is Major Maya Bennett. Step away from Rachel Sloane." There was a crackle of static. Then a man's voice answered sharp with irritation. "This is a civilian neurosurgical suite, Major. I do not take orders from voices in helicopters." Maya looked out into the storm. "No," she said, "you take orders from the wound. And right now you do not understand what it is telling you." Static filled the headset for 2 seconds. Then Dr. Owen Pierce answered with the kind of controlled anger Maya had heard from too many brilliant men standing too close to a mistake. "Major Bennett, my patient has increased intracranial pressure. Abnormal pupil response and a foreign body lodged within millimeters of the brainstem. If we wait, she dies." Maya looked through the Blackhawk window. Below them, Colorado disappeared beneath a ceiling of cloud and snow. The aircraft banked west, climbing through stormlight, shaking hard enough that one of the medics braced a hand against the cabin wall. Maya kept her voice steady. If you operate using standard extraction, she dies faster. Pierce gave a dry laugh. I have performed more than 800 cranial procedures. Not on this. You have not seen my patient. I have seen what is inside her. Another pause. Colonel Ethan Shaw watched Maya from across the cabin. The red cabin light cut hard lines across his face. He looked less like a commander now and more like a man calculating casualties before they arrived. Pierce came back on, then enlightened me. Maya closed her eyes for half a second, building the anatomy in her mind from the details Shaw's team had transmitted. Occipital entry point. Deep track. Metallic density near the pons. Surrounding spiral edema. Delayed seizure activity, unstable clotting, fever. It will look like a clean fragment, she said. Small, metallic, easy to access once you reduce pressure. But the tissue around it will not match normal trauma. It will be gray at the edge. It may shimmer under irrigation. If you pull straight back, the coating releases into the cerebrospinal fluid. The radio stayed quiet. Maya knew what that silence meant. He had seen it. Pierce's voice returned less sharp now. We noted discoloration. Did you touch it? No. Good. Keep not touching it. A medic near the opposite bench almost smiled. Maya did not. Is she conscious? Intermittently, Pierce said, confused, agitated when sedation is reduced. Can she move both sides? Yes, but left side response is delayed. Temperature, 100 to 2.9. Coags, abnormal. Platelets dropping. Maya opened her eyes. Rachel was farther along than Derek had been. Cool her. Do not lower the pressure too quickly. Do not drill closer to the fragment. If you need to decompress, do it away from the track and keep the wound field cold. Pierce exhaled into the line. You are asking me to delay definitive treatment. I am asking you not to turn a survivable injury into a chemical flood. Shaw leaned forward. ETA 26 minutes. Maya looked at him, then spoke into the headset. You have 26 minutes to keep her alive. Pierce's voice hardened again, but now there was fear beneath it. And if she herniates in 15, Maya stared at the storm beyond the glass. Then Steel 11, the line went quiet. This time Pierce did not argue. The Black Hawk cut through the night toward Salt Lake City. Maya sat back against the bench, but her body did not rest. It never did in helicopters. The vibration traveled through bone and memory. Rotor wash had a way of turning years into seconds. Across from her, Shaw opened a tablet. Medical scans flickered across the screen. Rachel Sloane's skull appeared in pale layers. The fragment sat deep, bright, and wrong, surrounded by swelling that looked almost delicate. Maya reached for the tablet. Shaw handed it over. She zoomed in, rotating the image with 2 fingers. There it was. Not just glass vein. A newer generation. The pattern around the fragment was too organized. The old compound spread like spilled ink through blood pathways. This version spiraled along nerve tissue, searching for speed, using the body's wiring against itself. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Whoever rebuilt this had access to the original failure reports. Shaw nodded. North Star Meridian retained subcontractor archives after the shutdown. You told Congress those were destroyed. I told Congress what I was told. Maya looked up. The aircraft shook. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The medic beside the door checked equipment with exaggerated focus, pretending not to hear. Maya handed the tablet back. Someone inside defense protected them. Shaw's jaw flexed. Maybe. Not maybe. He looked at her. She held his gaze. Project Glass Vein had never been the kind of mistake that survived without help. Failed weapons did not grow in the dark unless powerful people fed them. Shaw lowered his voice. Right now we save Rachel. Maya looked away. That was the oldest trick in crisis medicine. Make the world small enough to survive. One patient, one wound, one next breath. She tried to shrink the world to Rachel Sloane, but Derek Vance's words kept returning. They are collecting survival data. The Black Hawk began its descent over Salt Lake City. Hospital lights appeared through broken snow clouds, a bright grid against the dark. St. Barrow Medical Center rose near the edge of the city, taller and colder than Mercy Ridge, with a helipad glowing on its roof like a target. As they landed, Shaw's phone vibrated. He read the message and his face changed. Maya saw it. What? Mercy Ridge found Anika Vale on camera, leaving through the loading dock. Maya unbuckled. How long ago? 12 minutes. Direction. Unknown. She changed vehicles behind a snowplow. Maya stood as the aircraft settled. She is not running. Shaw clipped his sidearm under his coat. You do not know that. She stayed long enough to watch Vance survive. If they are collecting data, she is not done. The helicopter door opened. Wind and snow blasted into the cabin. Maya stepped onto the roof of St. Barrow Medical Center with blood still dried at the edge of her sleeve. A hospital liaison waited near the roof entrance, a thin man in a suit under a winter parka, his badge flipping in the wind. Major Bennett, Colonel Shaw, this way. Maya did not slow. What is her current pressure? The liaison blinked. I'm sorry. Maya pushed past him into the stairwell. Rachel Sloan. Blood pressure. Intracranial pressure. Last neurocheck. If you came to meet me and do not know those numbers, you are decoration. The man flushed and hurried behind them. Shaw almost smiled. Almost. They descended into the surgical floor. St. Barrow smelled different from Mercy Ridge. Less polish. More antiseptic. More old concrete under fresh paint. The halls were narrow, crowded with equipment, lined with staff whose eyes followed the soldiers and the woman in stained scrubs moving like she already knew the building. At the operating suite doors, Dr. Owen Pierce was waiting. He was in his early 40s, sharp-faced, tall, wearing sterile blues with his mask hanging loose at his neck. His eyes moved over Maya, once taking in the blood, the fatigue, the military jacket thrown over civilian scrubs. This is Major Bennett. Maya walked straight to the scrub sink. Yes. Pierce followed. You sounded older. You sounded smarter. One of the nurses at the desk looked down fast. Pierce's mouth tightened. Shaw stepped between them before pride could waste another second. Status. Pierce turned to the imaging board beside the OR doors. Rachel Sloan, 42. Penetrating foreign body near the brainstem, delayed swelling, abnormal coagulation, fever, intermittent seizure activity. We initiated cooling and decompressed away from the track as instructed. She is alive, but barely. Maya scrubbed her hands. Did you irrigate the fragment? Number. Touch the wound track. No. Administer blood products. Yes. 2 units plasma, 1 platelets. Response is poor. Sedation. Light. She fights the ventilator under deep sedation. Maya looked through the OR window. Rachel Sloan lay under surgical drapes, head fixed in a frame, face pale beneath the harsh light. Tubes crossed her body. Monitors pulsed beside her. Even from the window, Maya could see the faint twitch at the corner of Rachel's mouth. Alive. Still fighting. Maya dried her hands. I need containment gel, chilled saline microsuction, neuromonitoring, and the smallest angled forceps you have. Pierce nodded to a nurse, then looked back at Maya. We have neurosurgical standards here. Maya met his eyes. Tonight they are suggestions. He stepped closer. I am trying very hard not to take offense. Try harder. The nurse handed Maya a sterile gown. Pierce stared at her for one more second, then turned and entered the OR. Good, Maya thought. Angry men could still be useful if they kept moving. Inside the operating room, sound changed. The world became filtered air monitor tones. Soft instrument clicks, the whisper of shoes against polished floor. Maya stepped to Rachel's side and looked down at her face. For 6 years, Rachel had lived in a closed room of Maya's memory. Now she was here, older, thinner, lines around her eyes. A scar along her chin from Mosul still faintly visible beneath the tape securing the breathing tube. Maya placed 2 fingers against Rachel's wrist. The pulse was rapid and weak. Rachel's eyelids fluttered. Pierce noticed. She has been doing that. Maya leaned closer. Rachel. The eyelids moved again. Maya lowered her voice. It's Bennett. For a moment, nothing. Then Rachel's right hand twitched beneath the restraint. Maya felt the motion travel up through the bed rail. Pierce watched the monitor. Heart rate increased. She heard me. She should not be able to process language at this sedation level. Maya looked at him. She processed artillery with a concussion. Adjust your expectations. Pierce said nothing. Maya turned to the wound field. The entry site was small, almost insulting in its neatness. The tissue around it had been opened with professional care. Pierce was arrogant, but he was not sloppy. That mattered. Under magnification, the track showed the same gray lacing she had seen in Derek Vance, but finer, more invasive. It spread along nerve tissue in delicate threads, beautiful in the way frost could be beautiful while killing crops overnight. Tessa would have asked what it was. Pierce did not. He already knew enough to be afraid of the answer. Maya extended a hand. Cold saline. A scrubbed nurse placed the syringe into her palm. Maya cooled the wound track. Rachel's heart rate dipped, then steadied. Again, the nurse gave another. Pierce stood opposite Maya, hands ready, eyes focused. You have done this in the brain before. Number. His eyes flashed up. Maya kept working. I have done worse things in worse places with less light. That is not the reassurance you think it is. It was not meant to reassure you. The fragment appeared on the magnified screen, a tiny dark glimmer near tissue no surgeon wanted to anger. One wrong pull could stop breathing. One chemical leak could inflame the brainstem. One tremor could turn Rachel Sloane from survivor into memory. Maya's left hand hovered. Her right hand adjusted the angle. Pierce watched. You are approaching from below the track. Yes. The direct line is superior. The direct line is what they expect us to use. Pierce understood then. They designed the placement around standard technique. Maya did not look up. Yes. His voice dropped. That is monstrous. It is efficient. The room absorbed the distinction. Maya applied containment gel. The gray lacing recoiled slightly or seemed to. It was probably tissue response, probably chemistry. But for one dark second it felt alive. Rachel's monitor changed. ICP rising, the anesthesiologist said. 28, 30. Pierce looked at Maya. We need to move. Not faster, cleaner. 33. Maya placed the first microclamp. Rachel's left hand jerked. Motor response, Pierce said. I see it. The anesthesiologist called pressure dropping, 80/40. Maya adjusted. The fragment shifted. A bead of gray fluid appeared at the edge. Pierce inhaled sharply. Maya held perfectly still. No one breathed. The bead stayed contained in the gel. Maya spoke without moving her eyes. More gel, slow. The scrub nurse placed it exactly where Maya asked. Pierce did not interrupt. That was how Maya knew he was learning. The operating room doors opened behind them. Shaw stepped in wearing sterile cover over his uniform mask tight across his face. Maya did not turn. Unless the building is on fire, get out. Shaw's voice was low. Rachel's phone was recovered from evidence transport. She left a recording. Maya's hand remained steady, but something inside her braced. Play it. Pierce looked at her. During extraction. She may not live long enough to repeat it. Shaw lifted a small recorder near the wall speaker. Rachel's voice filled the OR. Weak. Ragged. Alive in a way that made Maya's throat tighten. If I am compromised, find Bennett. Do not trust standard trauma protocol. Do not trust North Star records. They changed the compound after Mosul. They are not testing whether it kills. They know it kills. The recording crackled. Rachel coughed. They are testing who can survive long enough to talk. Maya's fingers closed around the instrument. Rachel's recorded voice continued. Vance found the transfer route. Denver is not the endpoint. It is the filter. If Bennett saves him, they know the old countermeasures still work. If she saves me, they know the new version still has a weakness. Pierce looked at Maya across the surgical field. The anesthesiologist whispered something under his breath. Maya said nothing. Rachel's voice faded in and out. North Star Meridian has a shipment moving through Colorado. Not tomorrow. Now, medical supply cover, cryo containers, marked as vascular graft material. If it reaches distribution, every hospital becomes blind. The recording paused. Then Rachel spoke softer. Maya, if you hear this, I am sorry. We should have burned the files when we had the chance. The recording ended. For a moment, the OR existed between heartbeats. Then Rachel's pressure crashed. 60/30, the anesthesiologist called. ICP 40. Pierce leaned in. We have to extract. Maya was already moving. Angled forceps. The instrument touched her palm. She slid the tips into the gel field and caught the fragment at its base. Not the visible top. Never the visible top. That was what the placement invited. That was the trap. Rachel's body stiffened. The monitor spiked. Bradycardia, the anesthesiologist said. Heart rate 40. Hold meds, Maya said. Pierce looked alarmed. Hold. If you push now, you mask the nerve response. Heart rate 38. Maya moved the fragment 1/fraction of a millimeter. Rachel's oxygen dipped. Pierce's voice sharpened. Bennett, I know. The room tightened around her. Her vision narrowed until there was only the fragment and the tissue gripping it. The old Maya would have heard the battlefield around her. Explosions, orders, screams, the ghosts pressing close. But tonight there was only Rachel's voice from the recording. They are testing who can survive long enough to talk. Maya changed the angle again. The fragment released. Not fully. Enough. Gel seal, she said. Pierce placed it before the nurse could move. Good hands, Maya thought. Arrogant hands, but good. Together, they controlled the field. Maya guided the shard into the extraction sleeve. Pierce cooled the tissue behind it. The anesthesiologist counted the heart rate like a prayer. 34. Maya pulled. 32. The fragment slid free. Contained, Pierce said, sealing the sleeve. Maya immediately irrigated the wound track with cold saline. Rachel's heart rate fell to 29, then paused. The monitor tone stretched into something thin and cruel. Pulse, Maya asked. The anesthesiologist checked. No pulse? Pierce moved fast, starting compressions. No chest compressions, Maya said. Brainstem reflex crash. Atropine and external pacing. Pierce caught himself. Atropine. The medication went in. Nothing. Pacing pads, Maya said. The team placed them. Start low, increase until capture. The first pulse of electricity made Rachel's body twitch. No capture. Second. No capture. Third. The monitor jumped. A rhythm appeared. Weak. Unsteady. But there. Capture, the anesthesiologist said. Pulse returning. Maya kept her eyes on Rachel's face. Come back. The line strengthened. Beep. 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 Pierce exhaled hard through his mask. The scrub nurse closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them and kept working. Maya stepped back just enough to see the whole field. Rachel Sloane was alive. Not safe. Not healed. Alive. Sometimes alive was all medicine could win in a single round. Pierce looked at the sealed fragment. That thing was designed to punish the correct surgery. Maya peeled one glove away slowly. No, it was designed to punish predictable surgery. His eyes met hers. For the first time, there was no contempt in them. Only the brutal respect that came when one professional finally saw the battlefield another had survived. Shaw stepped closer. Maya. She turned. His phone was in his hand again. What? Mercy Ridge identified the shipment Rachel mentioned. Medical supply transport entered Denver 2 hours ago. Destination listed as 3 hospitals and 1 federal storage facility. Which hospital first? Shaw hesitated. Maya's face hardened. Say it. Mercy Ridge. The room seemed to drop several degrees. Maya looked through the OR window at the dark Salt Lake skyline beyond the glass. Rachel lay behind her with a machine helping her heart remember its duty. Derek Vance was alive in Denver with Tessa and Hollis holding the line. Anika Vale had vanished into the storm. And somewhere on the road, a shipment dressed as medicine was carrying enough glass vein to turn healing places into test sites. Pierce removed his gloves. I am coming with you. Maya looked at him. Number. You need a neurosurgeon who has seen the new version. I need you to keep Rachel alive. He started to argue, then stopped. The old Pierce would have pushed. This one looked back at Rachel. You are right. Maya nodded once. Good, that saves time. She walked to Rachel's side and leaned down. Rachel was unconscious, pale, surrounded by tubes and machines. Maya touched her hand, careful of the IV. You survived the first night, Maya whispered. Do it again. Rachel did not respond, but her fingers moved. Barely. Enough! Maya stepped away. Shaw was already at the door. They moved through the surgical suite into the corridor. Pierce followed to the threshold. Major Bennett. Maya turned. Pierce held out a small sealed case. Neuro-cooling probes. Modified tips. You may need them. Maya took the case. Thank you. Pierce gave a tired, humorless smile. I would say good luck, but I suspect you hate luck. Maya looked at the case in her hand. Luck is just preparation with better timing. Then she turned and left him there. The roof wind hit harder this time. The Blackhawk waited with rotors spinning, engine roaring against the snow. Shaw climbed in first. Maya followed her body, moving on instinct now. Every joint hurt. Her head ached. Her hands felt too light without blood on them. As the aircraft lifted, Shaw handed her a tablet. Live feed from Mercy Ridge. The image shook slightly from a security camera above the ambulance bay. A white medical supply truck had pulled near the loading entrance. 2 workers in winter jackets unloaded cryogenic containers marked for vascular graft storage. Maya stared at the screen. One of the workers turned toward the camera. The face was partly covered by a mask and cap, but the eyes were clear. Female. Calm. Watching. Anika Vale. Maya's fingers tightened around the tablet. Shaw spoke into the headset. Mercy Ridge, this is Shaw. Do not let that delivery enter the building. Static cracked. Then Tessa's voice answered. Too breathless. Too close to panic. Colonel, it already did. Maya leaned toward the mic. Tessa, where is it? A pause. Then the sound of running. Tessa came back, voice shaking. Basement supply intake. But Maya, there is another problem. Maya closed her eyes for one brief second. What problem? Tessa breathed hard into the line. Derek Vance is crashing again. And Dr. Hollis says the wound edges are turning gray. Tessa, where is it? A pause. Then the sound of running. Tessa came back, voice shaking. Basement supply intake. But Maya, there is another problem. Maya closed her eyes for one brief second. What problem? Tessa breathed hard into the line. Derek Vance is crashing again, and Dr. Hollis says the wound edges are turning gray. The words hit the Blackhawk harder than the storm. Maya gripped the headset and leaned forward as if she could pull Denver closer by force. Tessa, listened to me, put Hollis on. The line crackled. Footsteps. A monitor screaming in the background. Someone shouting for blood. The familiar chaos of a trauma bay swallowing its own walls. Then Dr. Grant Hollis came on. His voice was strained but not broken. Maya, his temperature spiked to 104.2. Pressure is falling. The chest wound is discoloring from the inside out. Did you cut? Number. Good. Do not open the wound. I remembered. The words were small, almost buried under the alarms, but Maya heard them. He remembered. Not because he wanted credit, because a man was alive long enough for remembering to matter. Maya looked at the tablet in Shaw's hand. The live feed from Mercy Ridge showed the white supply truck backing away from the loading dock. One cryogenic container was already inside the hospital. The second remained on the lift. Anika Vale was gone from the frame. The trap had split in 2. Derek Vance was collapsing upstairs. Glass Vane was moving downstairs. And Maya was still in the air. How long until Denver? She asked Shaw. 20 minutes. Maya stared at him. He did not soften it. Maybe 18 if the storm breaks. The storm did not break. It hammered the Blackhawk in violent waves, rattling the frame, pushing the aircraft sideways over black mountains and scattered lights. Maya turned back to the radio. Hollis, you are going to stabilize him without me. A second of silence. Then Hollis answered. "Tell me how." No argument. No insult. No title thrown like a wall. Just the question. Maya closed her eyes and saw Vance's chest wound as clearly as if she were standing over it. Gray edges. Reactive tissue. Vascular irritation. Fragment removed but compound residue waking under heat and circulation. Cool the tissue before you touch anything. Get chilled saline and containment gel. Do not flood the wound. Local cooling only. Tessa knows the gel. Tessa's voice cut in. I have it. Good. Apply a thin ring around the gray margin. Not inside the vessel repair. Around it. You are building a fence, not washing a floor. Building a fence, Tessa repeated. Hollis, check his clotting panel. INR climbing, platelets down. Plasma and platelets, but slow. If you force volume, you feed swelling. Understood. Maya heard him repeating orders to the team. His voice had changed since the first time she met him. It still carried command, but now there was space in it for other people to breathe. Tessa Maya said, I'm here. If the gray line crosses the suture, tell me before you do anything. It's close. How close? Another pause. Maybe 2 millimeters. Maya looked down at the clouds below. 2 millimeters was nothing. 2 millimeters was everything. Cool now. The line filled with motion. Cold saline bags being opened. Metal trays clattering. A nurse counting under her breath. Hollis calling pressure readings. Tessa breathing too fast, then forcing herself slower. Maya stayed on the line listening to a surgery she could not see guiding hands she had only recently learned to trust. Pressure 58/36, Hollis said. Start norepinephrine low. Do not chase normal. Chase alive. Chase alive, he repeated. Tessa spoke again. Gel is down. Gray edge stopped. Maya opened her eyes. Say that again. It stopped. I think it stopped. You do not think. You observe. Is it moving? No. Then it stopped. Tessa's breath shook once. Vance's monitor still screamed, but the pattern in the background shifted. Less frantic, less final. Hollis came back. Pressure 64/40. Heart rate 120. Still bad. Bad is acceptable. Shaw looked at Maya across the cabin. There was no relief in his face, only the next fire. He pointed to the tablet. Another camera angle appeared from Mercy Ridge's basement loading level. The cryogenic container had been rolled into a supply corridor. It stood between stacked boxes of surgical tubing and oxygen masks, white vapor curling from its seams. A hospital supply clerk approached it on the screen. Maya's body went cold. Stop him, she said. Shaw keyed his radio. Mercy Ridge, security stopped the clerk approaching the cryo unit. Do not let him touch it. On screen, the clerk reached for the latch. A figure sprinted into frame. Caleb Royce. He slammed into the clerk and knocked him away from the container, just as a vapor hissed harder from the seal. The clerk hit the floor stunned. Caleb dragged him backward by the collar. The vapor thickened. Shaw's voice sharpened. Basement team report. Static. Then Caleb's voice came through rough and breathless. This is Royce. Container is leaking. Strong chemical smell. Clerk is coughing. I pulled him clear. Maya leaned into the mic. Caleb listened carefully. Do not be brave, close to it. I'm about 20 feet away. Make it 40. Shut the corridor fire doors if you can do it without crossing the vapor. A pause. I can reach the panel. Hold your breath when you pass the edge. Do not kneel. Vapor may settle low. Copy. On the tablet, Caleb moved along the wall, one sleeve pressed over his nose and mouth. He hit the fire door control. Heavy doors began to slide across the corridor. The leaking container remained on the other side. White vapor crawled across the floor like a living thing. Doors closing, Caleb said. Then his voice changed. Wait, someone is inside with it. Maya's fingers tightened around the headset. On the camera, a figure stepped from behind a stack of supply crates. Annika Vale. She wore hospital maintenance gray now hair tucked under a cap, face half hidden by a respirator. In one hand, she held a small device connected to the container by a black cord. Shaw swore under his breath. Caleb's voice dropped. She sees me. Anika lifted the device. Maya spoke fast. Caleb, get behind the doors now. I can stop her. No, you cannot. She is opening the seal wider. Caleb. But he was already moving. On screen, he grabbed a metal IV pole from the wall rack and threw it like a spear. It struck the device in Anika's hand. Sparks snapped. She stumbled back. The container hissed violently. The fire doors closed between Caleb and the leak. The camera feed shook, then cut to static. Maya stood halfway from her seat before the Blackhawk lurched, and Shaw grabbed the strap on her harness. Sit down. Get that feedback. Shaw barked orders into the radio. The cabin seemed smaller now. Too slow, too high, too far. Tessa came over the line again. Maya Vance is stabilizing. Pressure 70. Temperature coming down. Maya forced herself to answer. Good. Keep cooling. Keep labs running. Do not move him. What is happening downstairs? Maya looked at Shaw. He shook his head once. Not yet. Maya hated him for being right. Stay with your patient, she said. Tessa understood the lie by omission. Her voice softened. Maya, stay with your patient. This time Tessa answered like someone who had learned what the words meant. Yes. The Blackhawk descended into Denver through torn clouds and snow. Mercy Ridge appeared beneath them, blazing with emergency lights. Police cruisers blocked surrounding streets. Military vehicles formed a loose ring around the hospital. Ambulances sat frozen at the perimeter, unable to unload. Patients inside them waited under blankets caught between ordinary suffering and extraordinary threat. The helicopter hit the roof hard. Maya unbuckled before the skids fully settled. Shaw followed her into the rotor wash. The roof access doors slammed open, and a soldier met them with a respirator kit. Basement corridor sealed. Possible active leak contained behind fire doors. Royce exposed but conscious. Veil unconfirmed. One container compromised. Second container still in loading bay secured. Maya pulled the respirator over her face. Where is Royce? Stairwell landing outside the basement. He refused transport until you arrived. Maya's eyes hardened. Of course he did. They ran down the roof stairwell. Every floor they passed carried a different kind of fear. On the surgical level, nurses moved patients away from vents. On the emergency level, staff pushed gurneys into interior corridors. In the lobby, families huddled behind security tape watching soldiers seal doors around them. No one screamed. That was worse. People scream when they believe panic might help. These people had reached the quieter fear, the one that sits in the mouth and tastes like metal. Maya reached the emergency department first. Tessa stood outside Trauma 2, mask on gloves, bloodied hair falling loose from her cap. She looked older than she had Azan 3 hours ago. Maya stopped in front of her. Vance. Alive. Cooling worked. Hollis is with him. He asked me to tell you he did not cut. Maya nodded. Tessa searched her face. What is leaking downstairs? Glass vein compound. Tessa's eyes flicked toward the floor. Airborne. Potentially. Tessa swallowed. What do you need? Maya looked at her and saw no hesitation. Get every portable cooling unit you can find. Cryo storage, transplant coolers, ice blankets, anything. Send them to basement access. Then help Hollis keep Vance alive. Tessa nodded once and ran. Maya continued toward the stairwell. Caleb Royce sat on the landing between the first floor and basement, back against the wall respirator hanging crooked around his neck. His eyes were watering. His breathing was rough. A medic knelt beside him, checking his oxygen level. Caleb tried to stand when he saw Maya. She pointed at him. Sit down. He sat. I slowed her. You also exposed yourself. I stayed above the vapor like you said. Maya crouched, shining a light into his eyes. Any dizziness? A little. Nausea? Not yet. Chest tightness? He hesitated. Maya's stare sharpened. A little. She looked at the medic. Observation protocol. Oxygen. Coag panel. Neurochecks every 10 minutes. If his temperature rises, cool early. Caleb grabbed her sleeve. Vale is behind the doors. Maya looked toward the basement entrance. Alive. She had a respirator. Door closed before I could see. Then assume yes. He coughed once hard. Maya pulled his hand from her sleeve and placed it back in his lap. You did enough? Caleb's eyes reddened not just from exposure. I threw you on the floor. Yes, I keep seeing it. Maya stood. Good. Do not look away. Then she went down the stairs. The basement was colder than the rest of the hospital. Concrete walls, low pipes, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The air smelled of metal coolant and something faintly sweet that did not belong anywhere near lungs. Shaw joined her at the bottom with 2 soldiers and respirators. A portable monitor showed air readings near the sealed corridor. Levels low outside the fire doors, a soldier said. High inside. Maya studied the layout posted on the wall. The leaking container was trapped in supply corridor B. On the far side was a maintenance door leading toward oxygen storage and the elevator bank. If Anika Vale was alive, she either had to stay sealed with the leak escape through maintenance or deliberately push the compound into ventilation. Maya pointed at the map. Where do these vents go? The soldier checked. Trauma, wing surgical prep basement pharmacy. Maya's voice flattened. She is not trying to kill random people. Shaw looked at her. She is targeting treatment capacity. Maya nodded. If she contaminates trauma and surgical prep, every glass vein patient becomes untreatable. Shaw's radio crackled. Kernel movement detected inside corridor B. Thermal shows one body near the container. Maya stepped toward the fire doors. Shaw blocked her path. No, she knows the compound. So do you. That is why you are not walking into it. Maya looked past him at the sealed doors. White vapor curled under the bottom edge, thin and slow. Not much. Enough. A hospital engineer hurried down with a set of plans rolled under his arm, face slick with sweat. Vent controls are manual from this panel in the mechanical room. Maya turned to him. Can we reverse airflow in corridor B? He blinked. Reverse. Pull air down and out through waste filtration instead of up into the hospital. In theory, yes, but the system was not built for hazardous chemical containment. Nothing tonight was built for what it is doing. The engineer swallowed. I need 3 minutes. You have one. He went to the panel, hands shaking. Maya looked at Shaw. I need cold. He nodded to a soldier. Moments later, Tessa's cooling supplies began arriving in a rush. Transplant coolers, ice blankets, portable cryo tanks, bags of chilled saline packed in bins. Nurses and medics passed them down the stairwell in a human chain. Hollis appeared last still in a protective mask, eyes tired but focused. Maya stared at him. Why are you not with Vance? He is stable enough for Tessa and the medic. You need someone who knows this building. She looked at him for 1 second too long, then handed him a respirator. Put it on. He did. No argument. The engineer called from the panel. I can reverse airflow, but once I do, pressure may pull vapor through any gap in the fire doors. Maya looked at the cooling supplies. Then we cool the gap first. Hollis understood. Slow the reaction before airflow changes. Yes. They worked fast. Ice blankets were packed along the base of the fire doors. Chilled saline bags stacked against the seam. Portable cooling units aimed at the metal frame until frost began to form along the edges. Maya knelt near the door with a thermal probe. The numbers fell. Not enough. More cold. Nurses handed down another cooler. The hospital had become something stranger than a battlefield because everyone in it was now part of the same operation. No rank, no polish, no hierarchy. Just hands passing cold against a weapon built for heat. The engineer looked back. Ready. Maya stood. Do it. He flipped the controls. The ventilation system groaned. Air shifted. For a terrifying second, vapor pushed harder beneath the doors. Then the white curl flattened, pulled downward toward the floor vent. The readings dipped. Shaw's soldier checked the monitor. Containment improving. A sharp metallic bang echoed from inside corridor B. Everyone froze. Another bang. Then a voice came through the door muffled by metal and respirator distortion. Maya Bennett. Anika Vale. Shaw raised his weapon. Maya stepped closer to the sealed doors, but not too close. I hear you. Anika laughed softly. You always do. That is why they wanted you. Maya's face did not move. Who is they? You still think this is about North Star? Shaw's eyes flicked to Maya. Maya kept her voice steady. Open the container fully, and you die with everyone else. No, I took the blocker. Maya looked at Shaw. Blocker. A counteragent. North Star had one. Anika continued. Do you know how many people died so they could make one dose? Not a cure. Not enough for soldiers. Not enough for civilians. Just enough for the people who own the weapon. Hollis whispered, my God. Maya spoke louder. Give me the formulation. Anika's voice hardened. Still trying to save everyone. No. Right now, I am negotiating with a woman hiding in a basement. Another soft laugh. Then coughing. Maya heard it. The respirator was failing or the blocker was not enough. You are exposed, Maya said. I am chosen. No, you are disposable. Silence. There it was. The wound beneath the ideology. Maya pressed. They sent you into a leaking corridor with one dose and a promise. If you mattered to them, you would be on a plane. Anika did not answer. Maya imagined her on the other side. Former combat medic. Used by contractors. Given purpose after discharge, then fed just enough lies to make betrayal feel like belonging. Maya knew. Chew that hunger. To be needed. To be useful. To be told the suffering meant something. Anika spoke again quieter. You left the work. I left the people using it. You hid. Yes. The honesty made the hallway still. Maya continued. I hid because I was tired of saving men for rooms where they built better ways to wound them. Anika coughed harder. Behind Maya, the air monitor beeped. The readings inside Corridor B were shifting. Shaw whispered, she is moving. Maya raised one hand to silence him. Anika, listen to me. If you have the blocker, toss it through the lower gap. I can analyze it. We can treat exposed patients. You think they made it traceable. I think they made it expensive. That means they made it specific. Another pause. Then something slid under the fire door. A small injector. Shaw reached for it, but Maya stopped him. Do not touch. She used forceps and dropped it into a sealed biobag. Hollis looked at it. That could be the antidote. Or bait. Can you tell? Not here. A sudden alarm blared from the engineer's panel. He shouted, vent pressure rising. Something is blocking the waste pole. Maya looked at the map. Maintenance access. Shaw snapped into his radio. Team Bravo, check mechanical room. Static answered. Then gunfire. Short. Contained. Too close. Shaw moved instantly toward the mechanical hallway with his soldiers. Maya stayed by the fire doors. Hollis stared after Shaw, then back at Maya. What do we do? Maya looked at the cooling units, the door seam, the injector, the air monitor, the hospital map. The answer formed in pieces. North Star does not need the leak to spread everywhere. They need the hospital unable to treat. If they block waste pull and force vapor into trauma, they win. How do we stop it? We move the cold source inside. Hollis stared. Inside the contaminated corridor. Yes, that is insane. It is physics. That is often how insanity explains itself. Maya almost smiled. Almost. She pointed to the portable cryo tank. We open the door. 6 inches, push the tank through, rupture the cold release valve and reseal. If the temperature drops fast enough, the compound stabilizes before pressure reverses. And if Vale shoots us, she wanted to talk. That means she needs time. For what? Maya looked at the ceiling vents. For someone else to finish the job. Hollis absorbed that, then grabbed the cryo tank handle. I will push it. No. You need your hands. I need a doctor upstairs if this fails. You need someone who owes you. Maya looked at him. There was no performance in his face now. No polished authority. Just guilt made useful. She nodded once. 6 inches. No more. Hold your breath. Push hard. Drop low only after the tank crosses the threshold, not before. He repeated it back. Maya positioned the cold saline packs. The engineer stood ready at the panel. Hollis gripped the cryo tank. Maya counted with her fingers. 3, 2, 1. The fire doors opened 6 inches. Cold vapor and chemical vapor collided in a white burst. Hollis shoved the tank through the gap. A gunshot cracked from inside. The bullet sparked off the doorframe. Hollis flinched but did not let go, Valve Maya said. He kicked the release lever with his heel. The cryo tank screamed open, blasting cold fog into the corridor. Maya slammed the fire door control. The doors sealed. Hollis stumbled back, coughing inside his respirator. Maya grabbed his shoulders. Hit. He shook his head. Number. The air monitor spiked, then dipped. Dipped again. The engineer stared at the numbers. It is working. Inside the corridor, Anika screamed. Not in pain, in rage. Then the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the basement. For one long second, Mercy Ridge vanished. Then emergency strips along the floor glowed red. Shaw's voice burst through the radio. Mechanical room secure. 2 hostile contractors down. Waste pull restored. Vale is still your side. Maya looked at the thermal monitor. The shape inside Corridor B moved toward the maintenance exit. She is trying to leave. Shaw answered. Doors covered. A crash sounded inside. Then another. The maintenance door alarm shrieked. Gunfire cracked once, twice, then stopped. Shaw came back. Vale is down. Alive. Medics moving in when safe. Maya closed her eyes. Not relief. Adjustment. The container was still leaking. The hospital was still at risk. The blocker was still unknown. Derek was still fragile. Rachel was still hanging on to life in Utah. Survival was never a finish line. It was a series of doors you kept forcing open. The air readings continued falling. At last, the soldier beside the monitor said, "External corridor safe. Internal vapor stabilizing. No spread to trauma wing." A sound moved through the basement. Not cheering. No one had the strength for that. It was breath. Dozens of people remembering they had lungs. Maya removed her respirator slowly. The sweet chemical smell was gone, replaced by cold metal and sweat. Shaw returned with a smear of blood across his sleeve. Not his from the way he ignored it. Vale is alive. Barely. She had another injector on her. Same blocker. Looks like it. Maya held up the sealed bag. Get both to the mobile lab. We need composition now. Shaw nodded and handed them off. Hollis leaned against the wall, exhausted. Maya looked at him. You did not die. He gave a weak breath that was almost a laugh. I was trying very hard not to. Good technique. This time he did smile. Only for a second. Then the intercom crackled overhead. Tessa Monroe to Major Bennett. Trauma 2. Maya grabbed the wall phone. Go. Tessa's voice came through. Vance is awake. He is asking if the hospital is still standing. Maya looked around the basement. At the cooling tanks. At the exhausted nurses. At the soldiers. At Hollis still breathing. At Caleb being carried upstairs on oxygen but giving her a thumbs up he had no business giving. Maya pressed the phone closer. Tell him yes. A pause. Tessa came back softer. He said good. Then he said Rachel was right. Maya's chest tightened. About what? Tessa repeated the words carefully. He said they were never moving the weapon out of Denver. They were moving buyers in. Maya turned toward Shaw. He had heard enough from her face. His phone rang before she could speak. He answered. Listened. His eyes changed. Federal storage facility near the airport just reported unauthorized aircraft on a private runway. Maya said Victor Hale. Shaw nodded. North Star Meridian executive. Rachel named him before surgery. His jet filed for emergency departure 15 minutes ago. Hollis straightened. The man behind this is leaving. Shaw was already moving. Not if we reach the airport. Maya looked toward the stairwell leading up to Trauma 2. Vance needed monitoring. Caleb needed treatment. Vale needed interrogation. The hospital needed containment. Every direction had a patient. Every direction had a fire. Shaw saw the calculation in her face. Bennett. She looked at him. I need you with me. No, you need Hale alive with the files. He will have medical countermeasures. Maybe exposure data. Maybe the blocker formula. You are the only one who can identify it fast. Maya hated that he was right. Hollis spoke from behind her. Go. She turned. He stood straighter now, respirator pushed up on his forehead, face lined with exhaustion, and something that looked like humility made permanent. Tessa and I can hold Mercy Ridge, he said. Not perfectly, but better than before. Maya studied him. Do not make me regret that sentence. I will try very hard not to. She nodded. Then she ran. The ride to the airport was not in the Blackhawk this time. The storm had grounded roof lift until the wind shifted. Shaw took an armored medical transport through Denver streets carved open by police lights. Maya sat in the back, scanning the blocker analysis as it came through from the mobile lab. The injector did contain a counter-agent, not a cure, a delay, a vascular stabilizer combined with a neuroinflammatory suppressant. Enough to slow the compound if given early, useless if given late. Dangerous if dosed wrong. Typical North Star, a life raft with a price tag. Shaw drove from the front passenger seat by command alone, barking routes to the driver while federal units converged on the private runway. Maya read the formula twice, then a third time. There is not enough here. Shaw glanced back. For what? For all exposed patients. How many doses can we synthesize from the samples? Maybe 20 with the right lab, maybe fewer. Better than none. Maya looked at the data. Unless Hale has the full formula. The transport sped through a security gate near the airport's private aviation wing. Ahead, runway lights cut through blowing snow. A sleek white jet sat near a hangar engines warming. Black SUVs formed a loose barrier around it. Federal agents were already in position. Then the jet's stairs began to rise. Shaw grabbed the radio. Do not let that aircraft move. Gunfire erupted near the hangar. The transport swerved. Maya slammed against the side bench, caught herself, and kept hold of the tablet. Shaw looked back. Stay in the vehicle. Maya gave him a look. He sighed once. Of course. They exited into freezing wind. Agents moved behind vehicles. North Star security fired from the hangar doors. Shaw's soldiers answered with controlled bursts. Maya stayed low and followed Shaw toward the medical cargo truck parked behind the jet. Its rear doors were open. Inside were two more cryogenic containers smaller than the one at Mercy Ridge, along with sealed cases marked as biological research samples. A man in a dark overcoat stood near the cargo lift holding a silver case. Victor Hale. He was in his late 50s, elegant, composed, and clean in a way that made Maya instantly hate him. His hair was perfect despite the storm. His gloves were leather. His face showed irritation, not fear, as if armed federal agents had inconvenienced a meeting. Shaw aimed his weapon. Victor Hale, step away from the case. Hale turned. His eyes landed on Maya. Recognition flickered. Not surprise. Satisfaction. Major Bennett, he said. I wondered how long it would take them to pull you back into uniform. Maya walked closer, keeping behind the engine block of a parked SUV. I'm not in uniform. No, you are in denial. Shaw's voice cut hard. Put the case down. Hale smiled faintly. This case contains the only complete stabilization sequence for glass vein exposure. If I put it down and one of your frightened agents shoots the coolant system, you lose it. Maya looked at the silver case. Portable cryolock. Medical grade, biometric seal. He was probably telling the truth. That was the problem with men like Hale. They lied strategically, so when truth served them, it sounded like a trap. Open it, Maya said. Hale's smile widened. There she is. Open it. You do not even ask what I want. I know what you want. Immunity money and a room full of men pretending your crimes were national security. For the first time, Hale's expression cooled. You have no idea how many threats never reached American streets because people like me made difficult choices. Maya stepped out from behind the SUV. Shaw hissed her name, but she kept moving. Difficult choices happen when every option costs you something. You sold wounds and made other people pay. Hale tilted his head. You still think like a field surgeon. One body at a time. Noble, primitive, useless at scale. Maya stopped 10 feet from him. No. I think one body at a time is where cowards like you hide the numbers. Gunfire cracked behind the hangar. Hale did not flinch. He lifted the case slightly. The formula leaves with me, or it dies with me. Shaw's finger tightened on his weapon. Maya watched Hale's hand. Too steady, too theatrical. Then she noticed his neck. A faint gray line just above the collar. Not shadow, not age. Exposure. Maya stared. Haley saw her see it. His smile faded. You dosed yourself, she said. Preventative microexposure. No, you are infected. His jaw tightened. The blocker holds. For now. Shaw looked at Maya. She kept her eyes on Hale. That is why you are running tonight. Not because the raid scared you, because your own weapon is inside you, and you need the full stabilization protocol. Hale's face hardened into something ugly and human. There are clinics outside federal reach. You will not reach them. I have the formula. You have a case you cannot open for long because the cold chain is failing. A tiny red light blinked on the side of the case. Hale glanced down to spite himself. Maya moved one step closer. How long since exposure? He said nothing. Fever yet. Silence. Hands tingling, his left fingers flexed. There. Maya saw it. You are already losing nerve function. Hale's voice dropped. Treat me, and I give you access. Shaw barked, no deal. Maya raised a hand. The wind tore at her hair. Snow melted against the blood still dried on her sleeve. She looked at Hale, and for a second every dead soldier from Mosul seemed to stand behind him. You misunderstand me, she said. Hale's eyes narrowed. I will treat you because I'm a doctor. You will give me access because if you do not, I will still treat you, but I will let the federal courts decide how long you live in a cage afterward. Something in Hale's face shifted. Not guilt. Never guilt. Calculation. Then pain hit him. His right knee buckled. The silver case slipped. Maya lunged and caught it before it struck the ground. Shaw's soldiers swarmed Hale, forcing him down, cuffing him, checking his pockets. Hale groaned through clenched teeth, sweat suddenly bright on his forehead. Maya placed the case on the cargo truck floor and examined the lock. Biometric scanner. Retinol and thumb. She looked at Shaw. Bring him. Hale laughed weakly from the ground. You need me alive now. Maya crouched beside him. I needed you alive before. This just makes it more annoying. They dragged him to the cargo truck. Under Maya's direction, a medic administered a controlled dose of the blocker from the sample injector. Hale's tremors slowed, but his breathing remained rough. Maya pressed his thumb to the scanner, then held his eye open for retinal confirmation. The case unlocked with a soft hiss. Inside were vials, data drives, and a sealed hard copy marked Meridian Stabilization Protocol. Maya took the document. Her eyes moved fast. Dosage tables, compound variants, cooling thresholds, contraindications, synthesis pathway. She found the line she needed and felt something inside her loosen. Not peace, not victory, but possibility. This is enough, she said. Shaw looked over her shoulder. For Mercy Ridge. For Mercy Ridge. Rachel, Vance, exposed staff, and anyone else they marked if we move fast. Hale coughed from the floor. You will need my scientists. Maya looked down at him. No, I need their notes. Scientists can testify later. Shaw allowed himself one grim smile. Then Maya's phone rang. Tessa. Maya answered. Tell me. Tessa's voice was tired but alive. Vance is stable. Caleb's labs are abnormal but early. We started cooling. No spread to trauma wing. Hollis is yelling at a resident for skipping identity checks. Maya closed her eyes. The image almost broke her. What about Vale? Alive, intubated. Shaw's medic says she had exposure despite the blocker. Maya looked at Hale. Good, keep her alive. Tessa hesitated. Maya. Yes. You coming back? Maya looked at the runway, the captured jet, the snow spinning through emergency lights, the open case holding enough truth to matter. Yes. By dawn, Mercy Ridge no longer looked like a hospital pretending nothing had happened. It looked wounded. Plastic containment sheets hung over basement corridors. Soldiers stood beside nurses at elevator banks. Patients had been moved in careful waves. The emergency department smelled of coffee, cold air, antiseptic, and exhaustion. But it was standing. Maya walked through the ambulance bay carrying the Meridian Protocol in a sealed case. Shaw followed with federal agents. Behind them, Victor Hale was rolled in under guard, pale and shaking, no longer elegant, no longer untouchable. The ER went quiet when Maya entered. Not the silence from before. Not the silence that came after humiliation. This one was different. People were working, but they looked up as she passed. Nurses, residents, techs, security, doctors, some with guilt, some with respect, some simply with the haunted recognition that they had been very close to becoming names in a report. Maya hated the attention, but she did not hide from it. In Trauma 2. Derek Vance was awake barely. Tessa sat beside him, charting with one hand and holding a cup of water she kept forgetting to drink. Hollis stood at the foot of the bed reviewing labs. He looked up when Maya entered. "You got it." Maya placed the sealed case on the counter. "We got enough." Tessa smiled, then tried to cover how close she was to crying. Vance turned his head slowly. Hospital still standing. Maya stepped beside him. So far. His mouth twitched. Rachel. Alive. He closed his eyes. For a moment, that was enough. Hollis approached Maya quietly. "I owe you more than an apology." She looked at him. Yes, he accepted it. "I thought authority made me right." Maya's gaze moved to the trauma bay doors to the hallway where Caleb had once dragged her out to the floor, where her soup had spilled and everyone had stared. "No," she said, "it made people afraid to correct you." The words landed without cruelty. Hollis nodded. "I am changing the trauma review process. Nurses can stop a procedure if they identify a lethal risk. No retaliation, no delay." Maya studied him. "That will make you unpopular." "Probably." "Good." He almost smiled. Tessa looked between them and finally took a sip of water. Later, when the first stabilization doses were prepared from Hale's protocol, Maya supervised every calculation. Caleb received treatment early. His fever broke by noon. Vale remained under guard and under sedation, alive enough to answer questions when her body stopped trying to destroy itself. Derek Vance's gray wound margins faded slowly from storm cloud to bruise. In Salt Lake City, Rachel Sloan responded to voice commands and squeezed Dr. Pierce's hand hard enough to make him complain over a secure call. Pierce's face appeared on the monitor in Mercy Ridge's command room, tired and unshaven. "Your patient is stubborn," he said. Maya looked at the screen. "She is not my patient. She is Rachel." Pierce nodded. "Rachel wants to know if you saved Denver." Maya glanced around the room. At Shaw speaking with federal agents, at Hollis correcting a protocol sheet, at Tessa teaching two nurses how to identify early gray margin spread, at Caleb sitting in a wheelchair near the door because he refused to go home until someone made him. Maya answered. Denver helped. Pierce stared at her for a second, then nodded again. "I will tell her." The call ended. By evening, the snow stopped. Mercy Ridge windows glowed against a clean, cold sky. News vans lined the street, but the worst details had not reached them yet. They would. Eventually. North Star Meridian would become a headline. Victor Hale would become a name people said with disgust or denial depending on who paid them. Congress would hold hearings. Lawyers would circle. Generals would forget what they once approved. But inside the hospital, the truth had already done its first work. It had changed the room. A resident asked Tessa before adjusting Vance's medication. A surgeon paused when a nurse questioned a lab result. A security guard checked on a frightened family instead of ordering them back. Small things. Maya trusted small things. They became loud things later. Near the end of her shift, if it could still be called a shift, Maya returned to the staff locker room. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Her locker was still dented near the bottom from where it always stuck. Her spare scrubs waited folded on the top shelf. She opened the metal door and stared at the inside. There, tucked behind a roll of tape and an old protein bar, was the patch she had not worn in years. Raptor Surgical Command. Black thread, red wing, white blade. She held it in her palm. For a long time she had thought the patch was the past, a symbol of the machine that used her until she broke quietly enough not to embarrass it. But a patch was only cloth. The meaning came from what a person carried into the room. Maya pinned it inside the locker door where only she would see it. Not hidden, not displayed, remembered. When she stepped back into the ER, the night shift was arriving. People moved around her with careful nods, not worshipful, not dramatic. Better than that. Aware, Tessa walked over, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. "You look terrible," she said. Maya took one. "You look worse." Tessa smiled. For a moment, they stood shoulder to shoulder watching the ambulance bay doors. Then Tessa said, "Are you going back?" Maya knew what she meant. The military. Shaw, Raptor. The world that called only when blood had already hit the floor. Across the ER, Colonel Shaw stood near the exit with his coat over one arm. He was speaking into a phone, but his eyes found Maya through the noise. He would ask. Not now, maybe, but soon. Maya looked at the trauma board. 3 incoming, 1 chest pain, 1 car accident, 1 unknown collapse. Ordinary emergencies. Sacred emergencies. People who did not care about classified files or military rank or defense contractors. People who only knew that their worst night had brought them here. Maya took a sip of coffee. "No," she said. Tessa looked relieved. Then Maya added, "But I am done hiding." The ambulance bay doors opened. Cold air swept in. Paramedics rolled a new patient toward Trauma 1. A man in his 60s, pale, sweating, clutching his chest, while his wife walked beside him, whispering his name. The resident at the desk looked to Hollis. Hollis looked to Maya. Not for permission, for partnership. Maya set the coffee down. "Trauma 1, she said. "Let's move." And this time, when the quiet nurse walked into the storm of machines, blood fear and fluorescent light, no one asked why she was there. They made room.